You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 499, our breakdown of the penultimate episode of Season 3 of The Mandalorian, an episode entitled The Spies, which has drummed up a lot of discussion here over the last couple days, 24 hours, 48 hours, or however long it's been now since the episode aired, and a lot to discuss. Coming off the heels of arguably one of the more divisive episodes of the season, maybe of the series, even for the really staunch fans of The Mandalorian. This was quite a change. It was back to, I would call, formula, or back to the MO, back to the formula in terms of what works and what we kind of come to expect with The Mandalorian. Some heavy losses experience as well, and a lot to discuss. And with me to discuss all of that is Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. Overheats on Albert's love. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you could have just gone with no, and then, it wouldn't be awkward, number one. And two, we would be in sync in terms of the reference. But either way, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I have to do something. It's funny. I have it in there before we come on air, and you just never pay attention.
I never look. Yeah.
Right.
And it's the first thing I look at, like a schmuck. I need to start doing that ahead of time.
I love it because then we get your real-time reaction to whatever. Usually I pick something rather safe, but today I was going a little. I gotta give it up for my buddy Paz. So
Yeah. Ooh.
here we are. We're killing people off every week in Star Wars lately.
Yeah.
We didn't lose anybody forever, and now we're just off them all.
we can't keep them on
Right.
air, on screen. So
Yeah. How are you doing so far?
I'm good. I've been in. I can't tell you how many conversations I've been in over the last 24 hours about different aspects of the show, and I'll talk more about this in my opening thoughts. But I do love that they put these things in there, and it causes the chatter, the water cooler talk, the discourse. Right, this is Star Wars to me, especially when we had no Star Wars coming out and we had to find things to discuss and debate. Like this, certainly, I mean, they're just hand feeding us things and topics, which I really, really enjoy. So, and all the conversations that I've been in, well, that's not true. Most of them have been pretty civil. There's still, people out there that are just want to burn everything down, but I love all the varying opinions, and I love the arguments pro and against certain things, like who's the spy, which we'll answer here in just a little bit. So it's been a good week, almost week and a half now for Star Wars. So pretty happy with all that.
It has been. I mean, coming off of Celebration, everything, and then we step right into this episode. That's pretty exciting to be able to come off that high and move right into another one. And I'm with you. Even if depending on how you feel about this episode or your speculation or which kind of camp you're in on some things, at least it's getting a lot of buzz, right? It's getting a lot of energy and excitement. Well, that's always the fun part about this. I'm with you. Anytime we have something that just generates conversation and generates a little bit of debate, healthy or otherwise, it just does bring an element of fun to Star Wars that, from a community, from a broader community too, not just the folks like you and me and our listeners that really, really eat this stuff up, but really across the board as well.
Yep, for sure.
So one group of people that gets me excited. Well, that's
aside from me, apparently. But
well,
yes,
I saw Mr. Flowers' message, and my mind went in different directions. But anyway, is our Patreon members, and we actually had some new ones join this week. Albert, super exciting news.
Yeah,
so welcome to James and Damien, new Patreon subscribers there, and then also our new welcome to the tribe members, Jacob, and then Steve. Our old friend Steve has leveled up to the now part of the tribe tier
awesome.
as
Thank
well.
you.
So yeah, super exciting. So welcome to the crew, everyone. We hope you enjoy the content over there. We will be bringing you more Cantina Cast Patreon content very, very soon. And while we're at it, special thanks to the rest of our top tier members: Mike, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin, Jackson, Truckman, Dan, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, and Steve now. And then, of course, Rod and Kathy at that Delusion of Grandeur tier. If you are curious about Patreon, cantinacast.com/Patreon, you can see all of the benefits out there. We are looking at a little bit of a shakeup in that space as well. So be on the lookout for that over the next few weeks as well.
Okay, so don't use shakeup, because that always has like a negative. To me, it always has a negative connotation. I think this is going to be a very exciting change for Patreon especially with the formats and the content we've got coming out. There's some fun stuff in there. I think is going to be fun. So hopefully you guys will like it too. So it's just it's going to be new and exciting. Not a shakeup. Shakeup sounds like we're like
It's just gonna be a little bit different.
busting balls. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, who shake me up every week though are the people who come out for the for the live stream. So Gary, Dale, Sky, Alex, Lauren, Amanda, Jeff, Miss Sunflower are the ones in the chat so far. We see a lot of people out in the background as well. We hope you'll come and say hi. If you are listening to this, please come out and visit us Sundays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Central, cantinacast.com/YouTube. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified every time we come on air.
Your mastery of transitions, I think you're getting too good now. Like I can throw anything. I could say, and that's why vanilla is my favorite ice cream. And speaking of ice cream, like you can transition and segue into just about anything now. So
yeah, people who are not vanilla and really a really nice mix of chocolate and strawberry and everything else are our Patreon members. Yeah.
So you're getting too good at this. It's a little scary. So, but kudos to you. Okay.
This is what I do at night. I just kind of stay up and make sketch out notes of how I made a transition every night.
Right. If he says this, I will lead in with.
I have a segue journal.
Did you? Oh gosh, did you plug 500? I wasn't listening.
No, not yet.
Okay, well, let's talk about episode 500 because we're at 499.
If we want to talk about really old things, the Cantina Cast is going to hit 500.
Stop it. So that's 500 numbered episodes, and not to toot our own horn. Like, I don't even. Have you done the math? Like, how many do we have out there?
We're probably something closer to 550, 560 is my guess. If I were to take an educated kind of guess or educated stab really at it.
Right.
Speaking of stab, I mean, kidding.
Stop. It's very like Marvel of us, like we're on episode 500. However, there's still a number of them out there that, are going uncounted for, that sort of thing. So
true. Yeah. And to Jeff's point in the chat, we still have several hundred episodes to go before we get up to Yoda. So we are just getting into this prime time stage of our careers here.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like both you and I are both well over 300 episodes of podcasting, period, 300 episodes plus in the Cantina Cast as well. So you and I have officially been here longer than anybody else as far as how many episodes we've done. That's kind of crazy. I was talking with Mike the last few days, just, texting back and forth. He's like, you guys like blow away what they did in the past, which is kind of crazy considering, I don't know how much we enjoyed the show back then and how long we've been doing this now.
I don't know. Enjoy's a subjective term, but no, I'm kidding.
You know what's not a subjective term, Albert?
I'm just gonna mute you. Like I'm not passing anything over to you. I'm not giving you any. It doesn't matter. You'll still.
So it'll be like most episodes that we go on. You go off on your tangent, right. And we'll just go that.
Yep. So, okay. Well, let's. So that's coming up. We've got some pretty exciting stuff lined up for episode 500. We got the Q&A. We've got all the Patreon changes that are coming. That kind of may feed into that as well. But let's get into the show. There's a lot to discuss here. All right, give me your opening thoughts, because I have a laundry list, as usual, of things that I'd like to kind of mention off the top of the show here, but I want to hear what you thought of this episode.
Well, yeah, I think, this will be a really high level, because I think we're going to get into a lot of the weeds here today and then again on Sunday. But I think overall, we finally get to Mandalore, right? We finally get back there. We finally get, the secrets are starting to come out about why the Empire is so interested in it, and why Moff Gideon is so interested in Mandalore. But the part I liked the most about it was actually the very beginning, was this idea of the Shadow Council understanding where it's at, getting Brendel Hux, getting Gilad Pellaeon, and getting a better idea of what the Empire structure is, what their goals are. Some name drops of Project Necromancy, of Thrawn. I mean, you kind of get all of it right at once. You get some familiar faces in the Shadow Council as well, which was really cool. Yep. I don't know if they've actually given us any names for them. They just call them warlords, I think, in general, but again, some of the things we had speculated on in the past, we did finally get some clarity around making sure that the Empire, while they're stronger than they appear, they want to make sure that doesn't get out too far. They don't want to make sure that presence still remains a bit closed in, and it still doesn't let the New Republic catch on too much.
Yeah.
But so I like that angle of it. I like that we got confirmation of that. I love that Bo-Katan is finally really truly embraced the leadership, but at the same time admits her insecurities and admits some of the things that she struggles with, and her, that doubt that creeps in about whether or not she can keep everyone together, and that she's really the leader that they need. And then, of course, Din Djarin just professing his love for her right there on the spot, and he takes her off guard.
Yep.
But I mean, so many great things. I won't even talk about the Grogu part yet. Having he can finally speak. We just didn't know it'd come through IG-12, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm curious if IG-12 will actually come back alive at some point, and I think that's probably, something we might be able to speculate on too, but I think overall, though, a really great setup episode. I don't know if I'm most surprised that Din Djarin was captured at the end or what that might be. You needed a bit of a cliffhanger, going into this last episode, but a lot of questions about Moff Gideon's armor, a lot of questions about I don't know what do you even call them, the stormtroopers, the jump troopers, of course, the Praetorian guards. Lots of stuff to speculate on there, but we'll kind of
Yeah.
pause there. But overall, enjoyable episode. Finally getting that, that kind of oomph behind it of saying, okay, last episode, here we go. Moff Gideon's finally back in the seat of power.
Yeah, I mean, I love this episode beginning to end. I mean, it was just everything like I said at the beginning, come to love about the Mandalorian and Star Wars storytelling in general. Quickly, I think one of the first things is just we're starting to get answers to even some of the smaller questions. Like, we'd always suspected that there was a shortage of Beskar, and we clearly see now why it's become such a hot commodity. Because not only is it, was it rare, the Empire was rounding all of this up, but they were using it to build these armor, right? The armor for these, what I'm calling Beskar troopers. I don't know what they haven't given us an official name, like you said. That we got. I'm assuming that the fragment of Beskar that was found at the end of that episode 2 episodes ago was kind of a hint that it was these guys and not what we were thinking it was going to be. Um, so I just love that we're getting these little answers to things that have kind of built up over the season and maybe even before that. There and there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things we got right. It's not to toot our horns here, but we finally got confirmation that Gideon is on Mandalore. I was on that saying that from the very beginning. Like I figured he had to be there. I was expecting there to be more Mandalorian tribes coming together. It feels like this might be it, unless we get a big surprise come in later where maybe Axe Wolves did go get reinforcements from other groups or other troops. I don't know. He's on my list of who the spy is, and I'm more on that a little bit later.
Right.
But we got confirmation the Empire is definitely scared of a Mandalorian uprise or Mandalore coming together. We kind of predicted that earlier in the season because it just makes sense. Who else is going to contest the Empire? It's not going to be the the Empire. It's not the New Republic right now, and Luke's got his other stuff going on.
Right.
And the other one too, like the one that you've been praising or talking about is that Din and the Children of the Watch, they don't give a crap about that saber, right?
Right.
It's he clearly said it. So I love the fact that we're getting some answers there, and the answers line up with our predictions on some things. The Shadow Council, to your point, I thought that was great. There was one interesting aspect of the Shadow Council that reminded me of the Nihil. Remember the Nihil? They were trying to assert themselves in the galaxy, but they were very tactical about what they did. Marchion Ro was very clear, like, you can't make a big fuss. Like, go out
Right.
there, hit a couple things, but nothing major, nothing big, because if you do, you're going to draw the attention of the Jedi Order. The similar situation here, fast forward, I don't know what the math is at this point, 100, 250 years later.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and you've got the Empire doing the same thing. Like, hey, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. Or all of this Shadow Council and the plans that we're doing are all going to be for naught because we're going to start drawing the attention of the New Republic and more Luke Skywalker. So I love the fact that there was a kind of a parallel there.
Well, and yeah, there's actually a larger parallel too with uneven distribution of resources. They're still Imperial, right? They're all still competing with
Mhm.
one another. There's still this jealous and this envy. Who's accumulating more power. You start to see where the divide is at on the Shadow Council as well.
Yep.
So I like that we're starting to get that divide. And the Nihil's a really great example. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And then I just the appreciation for what we're seeing. Like, on probably the third or fourth viewing of this is when it caught my eye. The opening, like the beginning, when we first see the fleet coming in, like I never like. Now I think we take it for granted, but just the number of gauntlet ships, and we've got a light cruiser. There's Mandalorians everywhere. Like, this is just stuff that I didn't think we'd see in season one, maybe even in season two. We got glimpses of it, but I love the fact that either we've got more money now or whatever is contributing to it. I mean, it's just a natural evolution of the story, but just seeing this stuff in live action at the scale at which we're seeing is unprecedented. We've never had this in Star Wars outside of movies. And even in movies, especially when we're talking about Mandalorians, like, it doesn't even come close. Like, we're we're on par with like stuff that we saw in Clone Wars, and even then that was kind of limited because of budgets, right? We didn't get the big grand scale, so I'm not saying they're quite there yet, but there's a lot of screen eye candy on screen right now for a Mandalorian fan.
Yeah, let me ask you a question about the light cruiser. So on the bottom of the light cruiser, it had the Mandalorian mythosaur painted on it.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you think that was an intentional callback to the Chimera or Thrawn?
Oh, I didn't consider
Because
that.
on the bottom
Yeah,
of Thrawn's Imperial Stars Destroyer had had this. I forgot what was the logo for the Chimera.
yeah. I don't remember,
Was it
but I
like
know exactly what you're
snakes
talking
or
about,
something?
and
Yeah,
yeah, I hadn't thought about that honestly. The first thing that came to mind when I saw that was like I need this action, I need this like toy or a model of it because it just looks
right.
massive. And then I thought, well, who painted that? Like, at what scale do you how do you do that? It just seems kind
That's
of
what Sabine's been up to. She's just been painting it. She's
right.
been
She
painting
goes around
the underside of that ship the entire time.
tag ships like that. Let's see. We got the no, 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 yes, yes, yes. That thought that was a pretty good comedy, and we'll more on that later.
That was
I'll talk
great.
about
Like,
Paz's last stand.
yeah, Grogu's in his preteen years.
Yeah, right. Annoying years, as we like to call them. We'll talk more about Paz's last stand, but I thought that was kind of a standout moment for me for all the reasons. And I got a question in here at the very end. So if we can avoid not talking about this, I'd like to discuss whether or not this was worthy of, quote, a warrior's death. And when we define warrior as a Mandalorian, do we expect more? Are we satisfied with how he went out? But yeah, well, I did enjoy all of that. Okay, and then the last thing is I love that we're filling in the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. There's huge world building going on here, and I never really put it in this perspective.
World tying together, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
world
less
building,
building.
world tying, yeah, unification, bringing in a lot of these streams of storytelling that have kind of been they felt so kind of disparate in ways, right? They have found a way to kind of start pulling all these threads together into one kind of unified story. So I made the joke on Twitter the other day that Dave Filoni was saying I don't think so to all the people that were saying they were going to reboot because he's doubling down on not that the sequel trilogy is canon and it will always be canon, right?
Right.
But what's very creative, what's clever, what's crafty about what they're doing is again, it's just that unification of all these stories and bringing in elements of not only what's already been created in canon, some of the stuff that we've saw in Legends, maybe arguably some of the better stuff that we saw in Legends, because it wasn't all great, guys. I'm sorry, I know there are people out there that live and die by that stuff,
Oh,
but
some of it was pretty terrible. Yeah.
yeah, I was honestly, but I love the fact that they're kind of picking and choosing that and creating this kind of a new concept for a new concepts for a lot of the stuff that we'd already read about in books and that sort of thing. But here's one thing that sprung to me, and this is a revelation for me. It may seem kind of obvious, but I've always wondered, like, on some scales, like I knew we had like 30 years here, right? 34 plus years from the end of Return of the Jedi all the way to The Force Awakens, right? We're in year 9, 10, ABY, something like that for The Mandalorian. So you got about 25 years here of storytelling for Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. You think about the original trilogy and everything that happened in that original trilogy, that all happened in like 4 years,
Right.
right? A lot happened in those 4 years. If you go simply from Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith, that was only like 3 years.
Right.
So I guess where I'm going is I never put it in that perspective for me when I'm looking at this and thinking, holy crap, we're only in 10 ABY. There's some pretty big things going on here. We still have years and years of storytelling that's available for them. And I don't know, I'm pretty excited about the future. It feels like even though I think it's all going to build, I guess is where, let me kind of put a bow on this whole thing. Where this is all going for me in my head is I think it's going to do a lot for the sequel trilogy, right? I think a lot of the disconnect that I had was that, yeah, we jumped further ahead. What happened how did the First Order come into it? Well, there was just a lot of things we just had to accept. They kind of started that with the Aftermath trilogy and some of the books that were kind of scattered in between. But this really feels like a rounding out, a fleshing out, a filling in the gaps, and just enriching all of that history. So it's all kind of starts tying together and starting to make a lot more sense for people that maybe had doubts or weren't really on board with, the suspension of disbelief that maybe had to go into it because from a headcanon perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and it has to. I mean, it seems obvious just to some people, at least, I guess, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
maybe not for others, but it just seems obvious. You have to, at some point, it has to start feeling like more like Force Awakens than it does Return of the Jedi. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean it's an either or. I mean, it's very much a blend, right? There's
Yeah.
still a lot of things in Force Awakens that feel very original trilogy in some ways too, right? So it's very much a blend, and this is that perfect time of being able to blend and really transition where we have it transitioning away from Empire, getting more towards First Order, starting to see some of those design elements come in, seeing some of those characters and some of what we see in the sequel trilogy coming to life, like the Praetorian Guards, right?
Yeah.
That was a really pleasant surprise, I think. And again, how long have they been around? Where are they? I mean, there's a whole lot of questions that go around behind that as well. But to start to see that transition starting to happen on screen, we've been speculating for a while that it has to happen. We knew that the Empire was up to things in the background. We've speculated on the two or three different things that were more or less confirmed in this episode that are definitely happening. Now, who is doing what? Maybe some shifts in there, a little more clarity we got that we'll explore tonight and again over the weekend. But I like that we're finally getting that, and that we are having. It does start to feel a little bit more cohesive, from we get from a total saga of Star Wars, not just saga like from the episodes 1 through 9, but a total. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is truly an epic saga across all content. And sometimes it works a little bit better than others, but I think Mandalorian and the shows around this really are trying to make it feel like, no, guys, this really is still all the same universe. We're not just on these little tangents. Like it does all matter in some way,
Yeah.
even if it's just a pocket of the story.
All right. Well, let's get into, I guess, the kind of breakdown. We start on Coruscant. This was kind of, I think we were used to seeing this now, thanks to Andor, right? The seedier, grittier, darker side of Coruscant. We got the
The Blade
music,
Runner side of it, yeah.
the Blade Runner side of
This
it.
was
Like,
like
is that?
straight out of Blade Runner with I mean, it was
Yeah.
straight out of Andor too, right? All
Sure.
the
Sure.
neon lights, the rain, the fog, the trench coats. I was there for it. I loved it. I loved it.
Is that? I wonder. Is that music like real? Is that like a real now, like a genre of music? Like, I want to listen to that.
I figured you would.
I would. It's like right up my alley. I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to go find it. I'll do some research on
Semi
that.
electronic techno type thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's some rave going on,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm low key rave kind of stuff, but
It was very weird to hear it in Star Wars, though. It took me off guard, right? Especially like getting right into an episode. And again, it makes sense on the
hmm
streets if you're walking around in any major city, especially in a nightlife type of district, you're going to hear a lot of that stuff. So yeah,
yeah.
it's not the cinematic sound you're used to in Star Wars, so it's a little abrupt. But at the same time, it totally does make sense, especially for a character that's wanting not to be seen and has to go to an area that won't draw a lot of attention. Although
Right.
I do question about the Imperial probe droid because you could see it just sitting back there hanging out. You could
Right.
see the red
Yeah.
light just hanging out back there in the back.
Yep.
I was like, wow, you guys are not conspicuous at all. Like
All right. They're
yeah,
inconspicuous at all. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
you
that's
guys are good at this.
wow. Yeah. It did feel like that was kind of in plain sight and maybe a little on the nose. Like if I was the Empire, change it up a little bit, change the light, maybe from red to blue. I don't know, do something.
Right.
But yeah, we continue to kind of follow.
Give it a red arm.
Give it a red arm. There you go. That way they truly won't be able to recognize that as an Imperial probe droid.
That's right.
Yeah, so we continue to follow the worst person in the world, one of the worst people in the world, like Kane, TK 2755. I guess that's her TK number.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I would,
I like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
not that that will do anything with that, but it was kind of cool to see that. And she's reporting into to Gideon basically that look, they've gotten together, they've fended off the forces on Navarro. Gideon questions that, like, how could that have been? Was it the New Republic? She says no. So some of these are kind of clues, in my opinion, as to who the other spy, because I think clearly one of the spies, as referenced by the title, is Elia Kane. We already kind of knew that, right?
Right.
But more on this a little bit later, because I think there's a clue here that kind of rules out a couple of people in terms of who could actually be a spy for Gideon. But okay, so we get to Mandalore, and we're on, I guess, Gideon's headquarters, is I guess what I'm going to call it here. We're getting into the Shadow Council stuff. Those ray shields, like, I don't think they spend the money to show that unless we're going to get more of it later. So I would expect to see some kind of a battle or something happening there in that area. But that's pretty fortified if you've got that many ray shields closing up. This was our first look at those white Beskar stormtroopers or whatever. I do love the fact that they are. When I saw them, I thought, wow, they've gone back to like the original white Boba Fett design, right before they added color.
Very Ralph McQuarrie inspired stuff.
Ralph McQuarrie, yeah. So I love that. I really love that they did that. I wish they would have looked just a little bit more Mandalorian and less Stormtrooper, but I get it. It's a blend. I don't know. What do you?
They're still Imperial, right? So it makes sense. I'm more curious, like, okay, they
Yeah.
seem like they're real people back in the suits,
Yep.
but they, with all the cloning vats and everything else that we see, Gideon walking down later on, it
Hmm.
seems like clearly they're enhanced in some way, potentially, or at least they're growing them in order to grow this army. So that was a little bit of a surprise going from the Dark Troopers, to a Beskar alloy armored, I don't know, human, I guess, right?
Yeah. Human. I have a theory on that.
That was a little bit of a shift there.
I have a theory on that. Well, when we
Okay.
get to that, when we get to the battle a little bit later and Gideon's speech, I'll kind of fill you in on that one. But
Okay.
so blah blah blah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you mentioned the cloning tubes. More on that here just a little bit as well. Let's talk about the Shadow Council. So this is a carryover from the what was it? I can't remember if this was Legends or the Aftermath trilogy. I want to say it was Legends. The
It
Shadow
may have been
Council.
both. I'm trying to
I
remember
can't remember.
Aftermath. I don't remember Aftermath very well.
Either way, this isn't the first time we've had quote the Shadow Council in Star Wars, but this is the first time that, to my knowledge, at least we're starting to. Well, we're getting it kind of framed, right? So
Right.
apparently, there's what 9 members. If you add Thrawn in there, I guess it would be 10 members total. We had Captain Pelion. Now I've got questions about that because he was in Rebels, and now he's here. I thought he was on the ship. I need to go back and watch it, and I haven't just had not a chance to do that. But I could have sworn he flew up. Now that's not to say he made it back or something else happened. I don't know. I'll have to figure out how that continuity
This
works.
is continued ambiguity too of whether Thrawn is actually back or not.
Well,
You know,
yes, yeah. Well,
I mean, I think you and I probably know exactly where Thrawn is not, but at the same time, it's that ambiguity, at least from the rest of the Imperials.
yes.
While they have that doubt, it always seems like his presence is definitely looming over all of this, and it's interesting that he's less of the obvious heir apparent, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
not heir
Mm-hmm.
to anything else, but just heir apparent.
So Paleon, Brendel Hux, there were some other folks in there. I like Ray Sloan. I'm like, there's other people that I'm wondering, like, where the heck are they? Like, they should be around here if this is where we're picking up. So this would be about 4 or 5 years after the Battle of Jakku. So if you're familiar with what happened there, which is where all the Empire was kind of waiting and prepping for the inevitable battle between the New Republic and that sort of thing. Um, there were some survivors, and the Empire lost. Spoiler alert. But I do have a question about some of the people that were prominent figures during the Battle of Jakku that disappeared. Technically, should be alive, but maybe something happened in those 4 years. But um, so Paleon's talking about Thrawn's return. He says something something that was curious to me about how the success of his return is going to be based on his secrecy. What did you think he was implying there?
I think it just furthers what he was talking about before, like with the other warlords, is that with the New Republic, they cannot learn of Thrawn coming back because then they will put the guard up. They'll stop dismantling the military. They will start ramping back up. They will go out and find them. They'll actually dedicate time and resource rather than getting caught up and absorbed in everything else they're doing.
Hmm.
And so I think it's a bit straightforward in that regard that they just can't. The less they know, the better they are, because when he does come back, being the great military mind he is, it will be very precision, and they will just take out the New Republic with one initial wave of really precision strikes.
Do you think they were trying to reference the Katana fleet? Like, I know we speculated that was the fleet out in
Yeah.
Exegol space. I just wonder now if that really wasn't it, and that there could be a Katana fleet. So a mass fleet of Star Destroyers that are all being built and led by Thrawn. And for me, I think that would be, that the secrecy there, the surprise element would be lost if they found out Thrawn was there and then they came across the fleet. That would alert them. That's kind of how I was reading it. But then, again, I'm trying to will heir to the Empire in here, so I don't know where my head's at.
Well, and with Project Necromancy, which I guess you and I might presume that is the resurrection of the Emperor, right?
Yeah, in my head, that's what
Seems
it is.
seems pretty straightforward in that one. That's the disconnect there, right? Because if that's the Emperor's plan, do they really think that they're going to use such a fleet for Thrawn, or do we think there's another fleet that Thrawn would have available to him? To me, Thrawn is more about making a difference when the odds are against you, right? Or
Hmm.
taking an advantage and pressing it, even if it's minor, and not necessarily having to overwhelm you with force. right? And having the numbers that the Empires usually has. I think that's the value of Thrawn being
Yeah. No, I
engaged
agree.
in that
I
type of
agree.
thing, right? That's where he
Yep.
really excels and that can make a difference and bridge that gap. Because again, what he also says, what Palin also says, he's buying time for Brendel Hux and
Hmm.
Project Necromancy. So they need more time to be able to figure out, this whole solution that they're struggling with on the cloning front.
Okay. No, your point's well taken. Like Thrawn for me is how do I do more with less? How do I take advantage of the situation?
Right.
Skillful, craft is masterful in that regard, right? That was clearly how he made his way in Heir to the Empire, and certainly in the Thrawn books now. So, on the topic of Thrawn, and feel free to put on your tinfoil hats because this is a very loose theory at best right now. There was something I was okay. Jonesy's putting his hat on right now. Thanks for the audible there. Um, the when he's talking about Thrawn, so Gideon is he's scoffing the entire time, right? He's almost making light of the fact that, oh, where's Thrawn? He keeps talking about his imminent return, and yet
Right.
he's not here. The way I was reading that too, I just started to wonder, what if Gideon somehow has a way or is in control of not I don't know how to phrase this without coming across as completely asinine or crazy, but I wondered, like, is he somehow controlling the fact that Thrawn can't return? Like, he's using this to his advantage, right? Like, oh, where's your Thrawn at? He's still not here? Huh. I wonder why. That'd be a shame if someone was, I don't know, holding him captured somewhere or preventing him from making his return.
Right.
Because it feels like I got the sense that he was definitely threatened by Thrawn. Like, as soon as Thrawn gets here, the gig's up. Either he's gone or he just falls in line and he's no longer the big cheese or wants to be the big cheese. And I think that's what, first and more foremost, I think Gideon's really just truly all about himself. So I think he's afraid of Thrawn because of the usurp of power that's going to happen once he shows up. But I do feel like at the same time, in order to whatever he can do to prevent that, whether it's controlling his return or preventing the return, whatever it is, even if he's going after Paleon's efforts or sabotaging those efforts so that they can't get him back, that buys him more time to kind of assert himself as the new leader of this new empire. And just the last thing in my head, Thrawn is loyal to Palpatine. Like I
Right.
don't think I think those two. Same thing with Brendel Hux. Same thing with Paleon. I think those four together. I think Gideon's looking at this as like, I really don't want those guys in the picture. This is all about me. And if I can get these other losers on board, warlords, whatever, then he can assert himself as kind of that new leadership.
Right. The rest of the council will fall in the step with whoever exerts the most strength,
Right.
effectively, right? And I don't
And he
know
was
that.
showboating too. Sorry,
Oh, he was,
at the
yeah.
very end. Right.
Oh, of course. I mean, he knows that he is maybe not intellectually superior to everybody in the room, but he is at least everyone's equal, if not their superior. And again, he has a plan, and he's able to lean in on the idea of that. They can't produce Thrawn. They keep saying it's imminent, right? They keep saying he's coming, but he's still not participating. And
Yep.
so I don't know if I'm not on board quite yet with saying that Gideon is responsible for that delay. It wouldn't surprise me if he had a hand in some of that, but I also think that I would like that Ezra has a piece of that too, right? Ezra is the one helping keep that at bay as well and keeping them hidden wherever they're at.
Hmm.
But I do like the idea though that, a Gideon, it's clearly a power play for him. He's the one that wants to be in control. I don't think he cares about the Emperor either, because I think he thinks that's just that doesn't make any sense. That's a bunch of sorcery. It's dumb. I will create my and his lines later on in the episode where it blew my mind a little bit too with all the things that kind of confirmed for us. But
Hmm.
again, it doesn't make sense for him. Like Thrawn's not coming back. I think you're right. I think he is threatened by Thrawn. I think that the master tacticianer in Thrawn, that was a really tough one. In Thrawn is very much a risk, right? Because it will empower the rest of the Imperials. And even though he's a Chiss, he's not human, they will get behind that strength because they won't want to necessarily challenge that because they also view Thrawn, at least militarily, they won't, because they know how to beat Thrawn is more on the political arena. And I think Gideon wants to have both of those things all locked up before Thrawn comes back, so he's not even on the board. And
Right.
there's no
Right.
reason for him because we've already asserted our control. Therefore, Thrawn can fall into step and fall under my power if I'm
Yeah.
Gideon.
No, I agree. I co-sign all that. I think, the clear takeaway is that he does not want Thrawn here. He is threatened by him, and it's a game changer if he does show up. So whatever he can do now to assert himself and gain that as much power with these other groups, then that's going to work to his advantage. So
Especially while it's so unstable, right? And clearly
yeah,
there's people who are jumping the fence just looking to assign themselves and assert themselves behind whoever has the most power, right?
right.
Those are the coattails they want to ride.
Okay, let's talk about Project Necromancer just real quick. You touched on it. Again, I think we both agree that it is going to be the resurrection of Palpatine in some way, the cloning, that sort of thing. It does sound like they were using cloning. At least Brendel Hux was using cloning for the purposes of creating a body. I think eventually that project continues. That is eventually going to spawn Snoke, right?
Right.
And so that all kind of is pretty clear in my head. Just I don't know if you got the Easter egg, but the guy that plays Brendel Hux in this is Domhnall Gleeson's brother.
Yeah.
So when you close your eyes, it sounds like Gleeson, and it's not. It's because it's his brother. So I just thought it was cool that he's playing his dad, and very cool that they picked those two up. And that Pershing was assisting with Project Necromancer as well.
Right.
So all of this now, the one thing that was exposed here, it comes up a little bit later. It was kind of what I was alluding to when I said I've got a theory about that, but it's this idea that yes, back to season 1, Gideon was very much involved in cloning, but it was not for the purposes, as we suspected, of Project Necromancer or the return of Palpatine. He had his own initiative. He had his own kind of plan. He's thinking about himself, right? He's quote in his own space and trying to take care of everything in his own space, as he talks about a little bit later. So he's definitely has a hand in cloning. Grogu plays a part in that, right? So I think all these are starting to add up. I think we're finally getting some of those answers. And again, I'm trying to hold the theory because I want to save it when it makes more sense a little bit later.
Right. So before we leave that, though, did you get the idea, though, so the impression I got was that Pershing was never really delivered to Hux. Like like Gideon was saying, yes, we've got him. Yes, we're working on it. We'll get him there. We just, whatever reason, they just never delivered
Right.
Pershing to Hux so they could continue that project.
Yes.
Did you get that same impression as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Like, oh yeah, we'll get him working on that. I've got a couple other projects that he'll get to first that he's working on right now. But as soon as he's done with those, I promise you, we will get to your Project Necromancer. That never happened.
Not my obsession. What are you talking about? I just walked through a whole hallway full of them. But, not my obsession. No big deal.
Amanda's still awake. I'm kidding. I think Thrawn is more dedicated to the Chiss Ascendancy than the Empire, and I think that will be revealed further on. That would be interesting too. Like that book does, for me, those books do kind of change some of that context that I think we had in the Heir to the Empire series of books. So
yeah, those are the Thrawn Ascendancy series. Fantastic series of books, by the way. Everybody should go read them.
Let's talk about the grand plan. So the return of Palpatine, the return of Thrawn, those are all part of this. We get into this whole thing about Hux and Paleon have been getting all the funds. So this makes sense. It certainly aligns with the rise of the New Republic, or the New Order, the First Order, sorry, and why they had Praetorian Guards and all that. I'm sure we're going to get into more of that over if not next episode, at least some of it, then certainly over the next couple of television series or movies. We're going to get all the background information, how this stuff all kind of came together. And then Gideon seems to he seems to be drumming up dissent. And again, this works in his favor, especially when it's against the needs or the wants, the initiatives of Paleon and Hux. So I did appreciate that. Okay, Praetorian Guards, right? So the minute he said this, I was like, wait, what? Praetorian Guards? Now, okay, no, full disclosure, some of this was revealed and spoiled for us last week, so I knew they were coming.
Right.
But I didn't have the context. I didn't know they would be talking about him, and this would just kind of be an open subject. So I have questions like you, like when did this Project Praetorian Guard start? Who are they now? If they were around even then, I always assumed this was some kind of a byproduct that happened, I don't know, 10, 15 years prior to The Force Awakens, maybe just before our Last Jedi. But I mean, we're coming back the better part of 25 years before any of that. So they're around now. And of course, I love the fact that they gave them a kind of a phase 1 look, right? They didn't look exactly the same. Their blades were purple versus red, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I got a lot of questions as to, are these an extension now of like, Dark Troopers? Are they, I don't know. I've got a lot of thoughts and theories around this, but what do you think?
Yeah, but I would love that it would be a continuation of the Emperor's Royal Guard as well. This is just, without the cloth and everything, they've actually graduated to armor because that just makes more sense given the era that we're in. And now the Empire has direct access to Beskar, right? And some of that. And so I think that's a I think those are well, or they at least they're sitting on this deposit, or at least Gideon is. So maybe Gideon's responsible for them in some kind of way, and he's taken. Well, man, it wouldn't be Gideon. It would have been more in Hux and Paleon's space there. But regardless, it's just cool that they do come back. I like again the connective tissue with what we're getting. I'm with you. I thought these programs would have been going on for 15, 20 plus years. So I like that it's in Mandalorian here with the Shadow Council of Imperials, because I think it just makes so much sense that we would see them. And they're the enforcers, right? They're the ones that come in for the elite protection, although they didn't really work out for Snoke very well.
Yeah,
But
whatever.
they're also the ones that come in and finish the job, because they, later on they make short work
Yeah.
of their enemy, right? So
Mhm.
I like that we do get them, that they are a talented fighting force, and they really a force to be reckoned with, and that they are using that to give Gideon a bit of a hard time, though, I think is also a bit amusing in that regard. Like, wow, someone's paranoid.
Yeah.
But then when Gideon drops the bombshell, like, no, Mandalorians, like this, like, they're no joke. And he had just got the news from Kane too, that they had combined forces, which is the worst news. Again, we had talked about this for weeks and weeks now. The worst thing the Mandalorians could do would be come together
Right.
and actually believe in one another and fight like a Mandalorian, an actual Mandalorian army would be the worst thing for the Empire. And
Mhm.
so you need to pull all the stops out. We need to put the kibosh on this right now. Give me everything you've got.
Yeah. Yeah. And just going back to what you said earlier, like I think even though so I would agree, like Gideon seems to be the hoarder of Beskar. And that works to his advantage because it allows him to build his own troops, right? These Beskar troopers or whatever they are. But I can see where, the Praetorian guards do have Beskar armor, and it's in his own best. Like he has a vested interest in providing Hux the Beskar he needs to build Praetorian guards, especially when he can request them in return, right? He's going to want to outfit those guys with the best things possible. And I think ultimately, I think he's thinking, hey, if I enrich this program or allow it to continue to flourish, once I've gotten rid of the Emperor and I don't have Thrawn around, that's all mine anyways. So I'm just investing in my future by doing that. So I can see where he'd be willing to liberally give up as much Beskar as he needs for that program. Now, if they made a requisition for Beskar so they could have what he has, which are these troops, I think he'd put a stop on that. Hell no, I'm not doing that. That's sorry, you know, we're short supply right now.
Now, I'm kind of curious how much they recognize that Gideon is investing in Beskar anything at this point.
Yeah,
Because I have a feeling they're in the dark.
they probably are. That's a good point. I don't even know that any of them. I think this was probably the first time these stormtroopers, Beskar troopers, or whatever were on display for anybody. Like the first time he let them out of their cages or whatever they live in.
Miss Sunflower asked a quick question: is Gideon controlling the pirates who attacked Navarro? Yes, we did get confirmation of that.
Yeah,
That it seems like he was directing that when
he
they
was
were.
behind it. Yeah,
Yeah, we had kind of speculated that would make sense, especially if they were trying to distract and divide the Mandalorians, chip away, break them apart, overwhelm them, whatever it might be. So we did appear to get hard confirmation of that one.
the other so he asked for the 3 Praetorian guards. Fine, that doesn't seem reasonable. Okay, tie interceptors. That seems more practical in terms of what he's using right now. But then when he said bombers, I'm like, what are you gonna go bomb, dude? Like, I don't, and even like in the space battle, like I assume that we're going, and just to kind of spoiler on some of the speculation we're going to get into next week, I assume we're going to have a space battle since we've got a freaking massive fleet sitting right above Mandalore,
Right.
and we got a number of people on the ground. We're going to have the Star Wars formula of two, battles kind of going on at the same time. This is what I would hope, at least. But I just don't know what you're going to bomb. You can't bomb that freighter. I mean, that freighter, or cruiser. It moves too fast. So maybe it's just he's out of bombers, and unless he just goes and bombs the hell out of Mandalore all over again, right? And take out any remaining Mandalorians that happen to be there. That could be an option.
It could. I mean, if you need to take out the ones on the ground and go finish the job, any kind of transportation they might have, although we know they don't have any transportation right now. I mean, those types of things. It's useful to have bombers on hand. Why not have an entire arsenal at your disposal as you need them? Yes, he's going to go in and bomb an Imperial freighter. That seems a bit of a risky maneuver, but then again, the Resistance tried that stuff too, and it kind of worked.
Well, that was different. That was a different size ship altogether.
I think your
So,
word you were looking for was dumb. It
well,
was it
no,
was a
it
dumb
wasn't.
move. Yeah.
No, it was kind of silly, but okay. Yeah, maybe they'll send the bombers to Navarro, says Miss Sunflower. I can.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point, because I think with Gideon, he's planning for everything that he needs to do. So if they didn't bring everybody out to Mandalore, then yeah, let's send them over to Navarro. Let's finish the job there. we'll turn that place to glass too because they've got lots of lava, sands, and everything. So
Hmm.
we'll just glass all the things up. But so it makes
Yeah.
sense that he wants a full contingent to cover all of the bases. He's a planner,
Well,
and
he said it
he
too. Sorry, he signaled it as much. He said that I mean, it was very clear, especially in his closing comments during this little shadow council, him talking about how like basically he wants to wipe out all Mandalorians. Like they are a threat. Squash them out. They shouldn't be around. That seems to be his new mission. And yeah, there's a contingency of Mandalorians sitting on quote New Mandalore out in the Bullet Canyon area, right? So why not go waste that place as well? So I think that makes sense. The long live the Empire again. That was showboating. That was him trying to rally the troops, get people behind him. But
I think Gideon believes in the Empire as long as he's the one at the head of the Empire,
well, yeah,
because the
exactly.
Empire
Yeah,
represents control and strength, right? And that's what Gideon wants. So
yeah. It was long live me is really what he was saying.
exactly.
But Empire right now, sure,
Right.
same
Let
thing.
me spin around with my arms out in a grand gesture, leading us in this epic chant of "Long
Yeah,
live the Empire." Yes. Yeah. Oh,
the
exactly.
bombers will have Beskar armor too.
Leave it to
That's
Alex
my
to say
bro.
something. Yeah.
Yep, he's thinking outside the box as usual. Okay, so let's get to we get to Navarro, and this is where we kind of have the Mandalorians finally arriving. They've got that light cruiser. We talked about the logo. I thought that was brilliant. I need that toy in some format or some way. And then as they were coming in, I saw Grogu sitting there on Bo-Katan's lap now. So
Right.
very different than sitting on Daddy's lap. He's now on Mommy's lap. This is indicative of children. They love to swap. It's whoever's giving him the love the most, and so I can see her being more loving than Din Djarin because I don't know that he's really shown that much love as a dad, but that's probably not uncommon. And then we've got this whole thing about the two groups coming together and the anxiety that Bo-Katan's feeling, which I thought was good. Like this is, they're making steps, but you can see, I thought Katie Sackhoff does a really good job of kind of portraying the stress and the weight of all of this stuff coming together on her shoulders and almost being given a second chance, right? And her like being very very timid about making the wrong steps again and making sure she's doing the right things because she doesn't want to screw this up a third time, right? Or a second time.
And she knows that any one little mistake and everything kind of falls apart. It's all just so delicate right now. And
Hmm.
the only thing they have in common is their dislike for one another.
Right.
I mean, and granted, their disinformation and their perspectives of what the other ones are, right? They haven't taken those blinders off to actually have a conversation. That's why the conversation later on was so important. Like, when they finally get to Mandalore and they're having the feast, like, where were you guys when all this happened? Well, we were hiding on Concordia, right? And so
Hmm.
but you get that vibe even early on when they all meet. That man, that dissonance is there already. Like,
Yeah.
how in the world am I going to do this? You can see Bo just on her face every single time, is just like, "Oh my god, this is about to just go sideways."
Visually, I enjoyed it. Like when you look at, there's a shot that, by the way, Rick Famuyiwa did a great job with this one. Like
Right.
he's another one that continues to just know how to do the Mandalorian, knows how to do Star Wars, in my opinion. He has this really great shot that's kind of pulled back. You can see all of the Night Owl forces on one side, all of the Children of the Watch on the left, and just the color that was going on. Like they're so multicolored, right? They look like mismatched, I don't know, just they don't look uniform at all, and they almost look kind of archaic in terms of their look. It's kind of weird because I went back and looked at the armor, and they're really not that different, but it's just the way they look dingier, they look dirty, they look older in some ways, and for whatever reason. And then you look at the Night Owls, and they're like the more modern, city yuppies, right? They got they're very uniform, right? Homogenous in terms of color. They all wear like the darker grays and the blues, right? There's no distinction among them. They look very cleaner. They've got a lot more lights and stuff on their armor because they have more tech in their armor as well. But there's that one shot where those two forces are just coming together, and it's very clear just from aesthetically that these are very two different worlds that are about to clash. So I really enjoyed seeing that, I guess.
Well, to make sure they clash, the first thing they do is they take their helmet off, and Din Djarin looks over to Bo. He's like, "Well, here we go. We're
Yeah.
gonna rip this Band-Aid off
Yeah.
right away.
Yep.
Let's just go and tackle it now."
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. So everything goes right. I mean, the armor comes out and says, "Hey, let's get ready for dinner." And I thought, well, I hope they show this because you got all these people, 100 people, and then 50 are going to get up and leave to go eat, while the other 50 sit there and eat amongst themselves, which is kind of odd,
While the other 50 just watch them eat.
right? We didn't get to see that, and that's fine. So, and then Grandpa Karga shows up, Grief Karga, and he's got the bottle of wine. This is so like, right. It's so grandparent-y ish. But basically tells Mando, hey, I've got a toy for the kid. And that'll segue into the best part probably of this episode. But all right, let's talk about Big Baby No Squeezy. So this was rumored months ago. I think in the summer, maybe in the summer of last year, this came out. It was quickly dismissed. A lot of people were like, "That's just silly. There's no way they're going to create an IG unit." And at the time, and there wasn't even. I don't even know if there was any talk that it was going to be IG-11, but there was people mentioning that they had seen a model or seen it behind the scenes where they had IG-11 and all that. I uh, I thought it worked. I was skeptical. I was like, "How is this going to work? How's it going to look?" I was not expecting it to work because I wasn't expecting Grogu to be, have the no and yes buttons, which I think added an element of comedy that I think we needed to kind of just say, okay, this seems silly, but it is silly, and at the same time, it works and it makes sense, and it seems very Star Warsy as well, and in weird ways. But I didn't have a problem with it. I loved everything about this scene. Everything from just the reveal to the bad baby, no squeezy. I want to get your thoughts on the puppeteering because I know you're not always the biggest fan, and it was very clear these were puppets, given the lack of articulation. But your thoughts go.
Yeah, as soon as we zoom in on the townspeople picking up, the bricks and putting them in place, if you can see in the background that the statue is not there. Like
Yeah,
you have the base where IG-11 was standing on it, and the whole thing's not there. And I noticed it right away, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He is probably they did something with it. What did they do? And then I remembered that this was rumored to be a thing, and I was like, "Oh, they're actually going to do this." And of course, then the first image that popped in my head was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think with was it Krang?
Krang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was
Hmm.
like, okay, well, how are they going to do this? Is he going to look like Krang or whatnot? So I thought actually it worked pretty well. The puppeteering, yeah, for the Anzellan was weird, but it was hilarious though with the bad baby comment. That was such a great callback to an earlier episode that they
Yeah.
have long memories. But well, I like that Grogu was just completely enamored. He did not care. He dropped the candies right away when it came in. Like that's for me,
Yeah.
and got up in there and it just automatically started using the yeses and the nos, which is fantastic. It just, I mean, the petulant teenage child came out of him now that he was able to finally communicate in a more direct fashion. And he was moving his mouth like when he said it. So it was like he was talking as well, which
Yeah.
was just another great, layer on top of it. But no, these were easily the funniest moments in the episode, probably some of the funniest moments in the entire season. And it was
Yeah.
just so it was just perfect. It fit. It didn't feel out of place. The stuff in the market was also great. Where he just the first thing he does is he sees a box of Mantel mix effectively,
Yep.
goes over and just starts scarfing it, as fast as he can because he again no context of what is right and wrong within the social context of things. But still, no, I really like it. I think it was great that he finally has some wheels, if you will, that he can get around and to kind of take care of himself a little bit. I was hoping though, I was
Hmm.
wondering if they were going to give him any kind of weaponry or anything like that, but
Yeah, that's true. We didn't get it. I mean, he is a weapon in itself if he's going to exert the force, although he didn't, which I think is a gripe of mine, but more on that later.
well, the position he was in behind the blaster later on and that kind of thing, you could probably excuse some of that stuff away that he wasn't able to. But you're right, we didn't get any kind of reaction for the most part, except from a little bit of surprise.
Hmm.
But we'll get there. But yes, I mean the great scene here. It was great to have him be able to get around a little bit, and again be able to communicate in some kind of way.
When they leave Karga's office or whatever, and they're coming down the street, and he's just slamming that yes, 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 yes. That's exactly what kids do. Like
Yeah,
you don't want to buy them toys that make noise,
because they will make the noise.
or because they will make the noise, right? Or buy a toy that does not have an off switch. Like I can't tell you how many times either I've been gifted a toy like that for a kid and I just wanted to choke that person for giving that kid that toy. But if they have a way to make a noise and repeat it, they will do it. And so I just really love that Favo wrote this in there because it is so very much a kid thing to do. Be super annoying until you tell them, please stop. And they continue to, and you have to tell them 4 or 5 times before they do, and you take the toy away. Can't take the toy away from them on this one. So
Right.
I did love all of that because it was very based in reality. Okay, so let's get to the Bo-Katan's what I'm calling the dinner speech. And she kind of starts talking about this is her final speech before the big day. We got to take back our homeland. She threw in this, she like slips in that comment about dormant species have been awakened. I'm like, if I mean, like, oh, please tell us more, Bo Katan. Whatever are you talking about? Like, why would she even mention that? The only person that would even know is the armorer because she, confided in her. But I'm surprised that somebody didn't raise their hand and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. What did you say? Awaken? What creatures exactly are you talking about? Can you expand upon that,
Well,
please?"
but she
Like,
got an out later on too, because when the creature came out of the planet, out of the crust, it's like, oh, okay,
Godzilla. Oh, that's the one.
probably something like that. All right.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Right, not mythosaurs. Come on, that's silly. Why would I do that? I just don't know why she mentioned it. It's like, what does it matter that
Well, again,
creatures have
it's
been
not.
awakened for them?
Well, probably that it's just not a desolate place. It's not empty. It's not devoid of life.
Okay, I
Like
can see that. I can see that.
there are things there that are now different, and it is dangerous. So you need to go into it with a serious mind and be aware and be vigilant, look after one another, that type of thing.
Yeah. No, I do like that. She talks about we've got to move the fleet around Mandalore, kind of going over some strategy around here. It seems like their goal is to get to the Great Forge, which I was really excited about seeing, and I don't think I saw it, but
It was the entire kind of middle area, but you're right, it was not very distinguished. I think that was probably the point. It was dormant on its own. Not,
yeah.
the fires have since been extinguished. It was kind of like a
Hmm.
callback to one of the Thor movies where they had that, where everything had gone cold. But there's no depth of field to it. It's all very plain and bland, and
Yeah.
it
Right.
it just is dead, right?
Right. It looks like a wasteland. It's hard to distinguish where one piece starts and ends and what's whole and what's not. And I think you're right. That was kind of the point. I got that, but I just, I don't know, didn't look like a forge to me, but maybe that was the point.
I mean, it was massive though. I mean, that was the thing. I think they were trying to show the scale, but without it being lit,
Yeah.
I'm with you. It's kind of hard to appreciate it.
Which, spoiler, that's one of the things I want to talk about on Sunday. I think we're going to get a scene where that thing is lit up and it's going to be glorious. Okay, so, so she's, again, elaborating on some of the strategy. They're going to have a security party that's going to go down. This is very Lord of the Rings. Like, she was, they've got a mission. She's looking for volunteers. You could sum this up also as, the Return of the Jedi scene where there's the Endor, very similar parallel. They've got to go down to Endor, disable the shield, et cetera, et cetera. She's looking for volunteers, and then Han raises his hand. Chewbacca. This is similar to that, right? Where people just started standing up and saying, "I'll go, I'll go." And we got the familiar faces I think we would expect to see in Mando. Mando says, "Hey, my kid's coming. Can't do anything about that." I say he's coming. Paz, poor Paz. And we got a couple other ones that they were never named, and we never really saw much of them later on either. But I suspect if they still are alive, and I really wasn't following like who all lived and who died, I suspect they'll probably come back because they made an effort to show their faces, which I think they had to. But some of them had some very distinct features about them, or a very distinct voice to kind of set them apart in the mix of all of the other Mandalorians. Even though we didn't get them later on, full front and center, I would suspect if they're still alive, we'll get something from them in the next episode here in the finale.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they were throwaway characters, but
Oh,
that's just
okay.
me.
Red shirts. That's fine.
Yeah.
So Mando, Grogu, Casca, Axe, Paz, everyone else, and then the armor finally steps in and says, "Hey, I'm going to." Which then, this is the first
Sending flags off. Yeah. Is it
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna
okay?
get to it.
Started raising flags for me.
It's like, what, you're at ponchos or what? What are you talking about raising flags?
Yes. I'm
That's a deep
ponchos.
cut for Texans only. Alex may be the only other person that knows what ponchos is. All right. And then this whole sequence happened so fast, which I really appreciate. Like, they just were like gunning, like, boom, we're taking off. And then boom, we're coming out of hyperspace. And here we are, man. We didn't waste we're not going to give you any context or how long it took. We're just there. The fleet arrives. They get onto the gauntlet. They're flying over. We get that comment from Paz saying it's worse than I thought. I think that was really cool that this was the first time they had seen it for those guys. They'd never been there before. And to see how different. I wonder how long it's been too. Like, they've been on a Concordia for a while. So it's probably, night, no pun intended, but night and day difference.
It's probably been 20, 30 years, something like that. I mean, maybe not quite that long, maybe 10 to 15, but still a very long time to right. You're right. Last
Mhm.
time they were probably on Mandalore was before the Clone Wars. And so
Yeah.
for some of them, they haven't been around that long.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to do this. So Miss Sunflower says ponchos are popular now because of Cal Kestis. Okay, yes. However, just so that you know, we were talking. There's a place that's in Texas called Ponchos, and it's a Mexican buffet. And when you're ready to order your food, they have these like really offensive Mexican flags that you raise on your table. And when the flag goes up, your waiter knows that it's time for you to come, and they come to your table, and you place your order for more taquitos or beans, rice, whatever it is you want. Sopapillas with honey, and then when they're done, they'll tell you, like, before they walk away, the waiter goes, "Can you please lower that flag?" because they get in trouble if that flag stays up for so long. So that's the ponchos we're talking about. But yes, you're exactly right. Ponchos are popular again. Okay, so that's going to be in. Let's use that segment for the promo for this episode because I really think we're getting down into what Star Wars is with that. Okay?
I think so.
Okay, so they drop out, they land. This is all. I mean, there's really nothing. I mean, it's all kind of going by the book until we get to what I'm calling the hobo mandos. I don't know what word to use. They were like bums. They were like out there. They hadn't eaten forever. I'm thinking, man, these poor guys. They didn't have helmets on.
Most places they call them refugees, but okay.
Okay, that's fair. Hobo Mando sounds just as good to me. But I love that their first question was, do you have food? And I thought, okay, who the heck? I mean, yeah, it's practical, right? I get it. Pragmatic. Let's get our bellies full. I just thought it was comical in some way.
I was super stoked to see Charles Parnell, though. I love him.
Yes.
He was Warlock in Top Gun Maverick. And he's been in other shows too. Yeah, I love him.
Is he the one with the big, like, scraggly hair?
Yeah, he was the main. He was the one who's like, to the forge, Mandalorian.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We were talking about, I know people have been talking about Skinny Pete. For anybody that doesn't know, Skinny Pete was a character in Breaking Bad. And he looked similar. He's just got this, like, really worn look on his face. He's a great actor. And it was cool to see him again, so. Now, this is another group, okay? So while Sunflower's talking about it, she says, I think they could be their spies. I think if I had to boil it down, there's probably 4 candidates that would be spies here. And so one is the armorer, because they signal this almost throughout the entire episode. And there's not just one red flag, there's lots of them, okay?
Right.
Then there's these guys, the hobo mandos. I think they could be, there's some arguments to be made that they could be the spies. I do think that the ones that are not being discussed the most, in order of likelihood for me, is going to be Axe Wolves. Like, he did some really questionable things. And then I think I would even throw in Casca as well as potentially a spy. I think she's kind of a weaker argument because of, her loyalty to Bo-Katan.
And they've not positioned her in any kind of way.
Yeah, well, and sometimes they do that, though, right? It's like you watch, like, the quote. I hate to bring Scream in this, but I edit this podcast every week. But it can Scream. It's always the people you don't suspect, right? They're the killers. Like, they purposely downplay their involvement.
How many times have we learned this lesson with Star Wars, though?
I know. Star Wars is a different breed.
When they tell you, you got to believe them.
You got to believe them. I know.
Or today too, like there were theories going on. I'm like, or we could just take it at face value because they keep making us take it at face value, but we keep not wanting to believe it.
Right. Yeah. They're not going to get us this time. Man, they get us this time.
We'll take it at face value this time, then they will get us. I'll be like, oh.
We'll talk about some of the arguments pro and against, or for and against, for all of those here in just a little bit. But let's get back to the hobo mandos. It seems like they seem like they are. I'm going to keep saying that until it sticks with everybody. They seem like they are genuinely, sincerely loyal to Bo-Katan.
Right.
Unless that's a front. But I did appreciate that aspect of it, right? That they recognize her as the leader, even though everything else has happened. They still recognize her as a leader. This is, again, not to like hark on Lord of the Rings, but there's a lot of parallels that are running, particularly with that.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that really, that gives credibility to they would be, potentially the ones that would betray her, is that because they know exactly where the forge is at, and if they've been near the forge, presumably they've been close enough to see all of the Imperial stuff going on too, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thread there that ties them to being the ones who are betraying.
Yeah. Okay, so they go to and have what I'm calling the hobo dinner, where they finally eat. They break bread with them. This is a really great scene. Like, it was really dark, and I mean that literally. Like, it was filmed very dark. There was not a lot of light.
Such a problem with lighting.
It's my TV, I think, more than anything. But yeah, so we get the backstory, right? More than we've ever had. The Empire basically bombed the crap out of it. We knew that. We learned that Bo-Katan really had no choice. Like, she felt like if she didn't sign this ceasefire agreement with Gideon, that the rest of Mandalore was going to be, turned to glass. And so she went ahead and signed it. She turned everything over, put her faith in the Gideon, and Gideon still burned her, and then took the Darksaber away from her. So it was, insult to injury at that point.
It was curious that Casca was trying to get her not to say anything, though. I mean, I presume this was because she wanted to make sure that she kind of saved face and didn't lose everybody right away. This is why Casca is not on my radar at all. She would be like, "No, don't say that because then you're gonna lose everyone. They're gonna turn their backs on you because
Yeah.
you're the one that turned their back on their people, even though when she was just trying to save them." But
Right.
so it
Yeah, and
was
she did
curious
it.
that she
I
was
love the
trying
way
to.
they did it too. Like she looked at her like there was they weren't talking, but you could tell she was like, "Don't say it." She's like, "No, it's okay. I need to say this, right? I need to be truthful about and honest about what happened here."
Oh, exactly. I mean, to Bo-Katan's credit, I mean, this is very much like, no, I need to be transparent. If I'm going to lead, I need to be transparent with my transgressions of what I have done,
Mm-hmm.
so that I think it's as much for Bo-Katan as well. Like if they will follow me after hearing the story, then I do have their loyalty. They do believe in me as their leader, and they can see my actions and they can put all that together that I do care and I'm not. I tried to do it in their best interests. That didn't work out. Now I'm back to try to rectify and try to fix some of my wrongdoings in that way.
Yep. They get into Death Watch a little bit. They question about Death Watch. The armorer is quick to point out, "Hey, we were, they that splintered up into a number of groups, and that created the Children of the Watch. But we were basically on Concordia this whole time."
But basically, yes, they were Death Watch.
Yeah, they were Death
Yep.
Watch, and there's no denying it. I mean, that it's I get that, right? But so was Bo-Katan. So what does that say? I mean, she was literally fighting alongside Darth Maul at one point. So, or at least with Death Watch. Along what was the name? The other Vizsla guy.
Yeah, pre.
Yeah. Well, somebody will hit the chat here in just a second too. That's what you're here for. Okay, so we get into this. Death Watch was on Concordia. They were splintered.
It's pre Vizsla.
Okay, played by Jon Favreau. And then we get into this whole thing about, Mandalore was always too powerful for any enemy to defeat. It's always been our division that destroys us. And this is similar to what we've been talking about ever since season two, or even probably even season one, but I think season two is when this kind of came up front and center, that this is just a history of them, right? They have a history of that goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years of being their own worst enemy. And this is what prevented them from ever surfacing as a legitimate sovereign planet, part of the larger galaxy. Even if they don't want that, everybody knows don't go to that planet. Those guys are pissed off at each other all the time. They're always trying to kill each other.
Exactly. I mean, this is just their culture. This is what they've always been their worst enemy, and
Yeah, right.
it's great that she calls it out. I mean, this is what they need to hear. They need to be able to say, "Look, we've tried this over and over and over, and the only one who gets in our way is ourselves, and this is why they continue to win, and that's
Hmm.
why we won in the first place. So we have to do something different. So do you want to do something different? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And this is your opportunity. What have you got to lose at this point? For the refugee Mandalorians, look how you're living. You're living in squalor. You're never sure where your next meal is going to come from. Whereas the rest of them are in hiding and they're scattered across the galaxy and they're living in caves. And the armor herself is in that same kind of boat, saying, "Well, I'm kind of makeshifting a forge everywhere I go." That's the heart of the Mandalorian. That's how we work. But still, like they took our home from us. Why can we
Hmm.
not put all of those differences aside to come back and try to reclaim our home?
Yeah. We so after dinner we get this sweet little scene between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin. It was great. I really enjoyed everything.
They put the moves on her, man. Sweet talking. Your
I
story is not
mean,
yet written.
I know,
I'll be here
my
till the
dear.
end. Yeah.
I mean, the flowers, you didn't see them, but he laid them down right there at her feet off
My
camera.
my
So,
love. Yeah.
pretty much. But yeah, I mean, he basically comes in and says, "Look, I understand, you're right." She was saying, "You're right. I was selfish. And this is what I wrought." Basically saying, "Look, you were right all along. This was my own doing." I think this is good. This is a good revelation for her. Oh, I worry about where this is going with Bo-Katan. More on that next on Sunday. Hmm. I got some theories there. But his speech, right? He's like, "We'll rebuild it, honey. We'll do this together," kind of thing, right? Isn't that our history? For thousands of years, we've been on the verge of extinction, and for thousands of years, we have survived. She says, "I don't know if I can keep it all together. There's so much animosity, except for the blade." And this is where we get that confirmation that Din's like, "I don't even care about that. Like, all I know is what you told me. It's never been part of this. And yet we're all behind you. And it's not because of the blade. It's because of the other things you did, right? Those establishing moments that we had in saving, what's his face, the Vizsla kid and leading the search party, right? All those leadership aspects, the integrity, I wouldn't even rattle off character, loyalty, honor. Those are the things that
Right.
she was showing almost verbatim in those episodes, and that's what got them on board, not the sword.
Exactly. I mean, this is exactly what these are the things that he values. I think it's what Mandalorians in general value as well. But I think it's one thing that I think the Children of the Watch have a better grasp on in some ways because they don't just go with, and I think that's I have a bit of a problem with the depiction they've done with the Night Owls or with Bo-Katan's crew, them leaving because she didn't get the dark saber or all of that. That they're so predisposed to only be able to fixate on the symbol of leadership rather than the behaviors of leadership. I think is telling, and I think that's where the Children of the Watch. This is where they're a good dynamic, between the two to have that difference because one does they value the old ways, the culture, but it's really the idea, the ideals behind a lot of it too, of the way that you act, the way that you behave, your commitment, those things matter, right? And that we don't lose sight of that. Yeah, they're very rigid with it, dogmatic and overkill at times, but at the very basis of it though, these are the things that matter most to us, and those are unwavering,
Mhm.
right? And we will protect our own and we will go to bat for our own because that's what we do. This is the way of sorts.
That whole speech, we already talked about. What I know about this weapon is what you taught me. Means nothing to me. He says, nor does station or bloodline. That's important, right? Where you come from and who you came from.
Station, I don't know that I believe the station comment entirely. In some aspects of it, yes, but not at all because they clearly respect the station, the armor.
I kind of saw station. I took station more about like whether you're from Mandalore or on Concordia. Like to me,
Okay,
it always felt like there was a
whether you're a princess or not, what you're
like a lesser group. If you're out on some other Hobunk planet out there and you quote or a Mandalorian, you're not really Mandalorian because you're not a Mandalore proper, right?
yeah,
I stationed from that regard, but I see what you're saying though too from a leadership position perspective,
right, hierarchy and that type of thing. Yeah,
hierarchy.
I thought of more hierarchy because of the princess comment and the bloodline lineage. So I know where he was getting at too, but
Yeah.
the Children of the Watch have something similar. It's just more hierarchical.
What means more to me is honor and loyalty and character. These are the reasons I serve you, my love. Or no, I'm sorry. It says Lady Kreese is what he says.
Oh, that was in the audio description. Yeah,
Your song is not yet written, my love. Oh no, that's not what he says. I will serve you until it is, my love. So
until I die, my love.
clearly,
Yes, until death
clearly,
do
good
us
night, my
part.
love. Yeah, clearly, these guys have a thing going on. He's got a thing for her. So, all joking aside, I really love this. I think she needed that. It was a great affirmation of she is the right person, and it shows his dedication to her. And I think he speaks for, as we see a little bit later, maybe not as overt, but I think he does speak for the rest of the Children of the Watch because they do get behind her. They do rally behind her, especially when things got really tough there at the very end and they needed to get out.
Right.
I mean, well, Paz sacrificed his life. So there you go.
Maybe unnecessarily, but yeah,
Hey,
we'll
you know
talk
what?
about that.
There was so I will say this,
Don't get ahead
and
of
just
yourself.
no. As a disclaimer for some of the things in this episode in particular, and especially when we got to that last part of it, you just have to go with it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you overthink it, you're like, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? How come this happened? And
Paz would
it's
not
I
have
don't know.
fit through that hole anyway, so it would have been fine.
Oh, come on.
What he
He
had
could
so
have taken
much
the
gear,
jetpack off or taken it off. He'd been fine.
but the gun, no, no, it would have been
He
tough.
could have ditched it. That's fine. He would have made it through.
I'm gonna need a bigger hole.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday. Okay, so we get the sick and the wounded. Okay, so here comes one of the bigger red flags for the armor, right? I I don't believe in my heart that she is the traitor. I'll just be very transparent about that right now. Okay, but I definitely see why people are looking at this and going, "Oh, how convenient." She wants to leave in the morning. Things are probably going to get a little dicey. She knows they're going to get a little dicey given where they are, where they're going. And so let me get out of here to the fleet. And if you want to follow the theory that she is the traitor, she could really be the monkey wrench in that fleet up there, right? If the interceptors are going, she could put them in. She could order them to be in a very what do you call it, vulnerable position, right?
Right,
No shields up, doing something else. I don't know, whatever it is, sabotaging the fleet, or she could do all kinds of things that really give the Imperials an advantage with that space battle. So I totally get it. I think there is merit though. If those guys are one, if they are genuinely wounded and you're not considering them the spies, I think it makes sense. In favor of the hobo bandos as being the spies, they could be like a Trojan horse where they were kind of playing sick. Oh, we can't really go. And then
right,
they get up there. Now you've got your forces on the inside sabotaging, stealing ships, making them attack their each other, that kind of thing. That could be kind of disastrous as well. So I like both of those theories. And I'm not again opposed to any one of the four that I talked about as being maybe Casca. I really think that was the weakest one, but I'm not against any of the series. But definitely there's some red flags happening here, both for the armor and the Hobo Mandos.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that you could set any of them up in a variety of ways. I think the harder one with the armor is like, okay, how? Like, how would she be in contact? She'd have to have a communications device. There had to be something. And it seems like that would have all been triggered in some way over the years, and that all of a sudden this would have come about. Seems again
Hmm.
unlikely. But were they hiding on Concordia for a reason in the first place? To where they allowed the Empire to do all of this, and they agreed to stay back and say, "We'll come in afterwards and clean up the mess," and then something went awry from there. So there could be more history as well into this whole engagement that dates back all the way to Night of a Thousand Tears and the Purge of Mandalore and all of that too. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if any more of that story comes out, if there are different perspectives and tellings on it as well. But I mean, the idea of the armor does make some amount of sense though, because and I don't know if we're ready for all this stuff or not, but the one part that does make sense is that, she is unhappy even still with Bo-Katan leading them. She's still very unhappy, I think, that the way it's so splintered, it is so bastardized in some ways, right? That it is just not pure anymore. So many have strayed from walking the way, right? Is what she said, in a
Yeah.
previous episode. So is this the way to cleanse the tribe, if you will, and everybody adhere back in that, even if it's back to being a very, very small unit? I can see, and this is where zealots really do think this way, and they really do feel like this is it. Like, I will put us in a position that we have to start over entirely. And the only way to really do this and to cleanse our past is to really strip everything down, even if it means losing a lot of my own folks, in order to really truly purge, for lack of a better word, all of the all of the sick part of
Yeah.
our way of life and our way of being.
Yeah, it's how they rationalize it. It's how they justify it. It's we're the purists. This is all religious stuff too, right? Like we're
Right.
the chosen. We're the true children of God, right? All that stuff. We're the true children of the way. And so, yeah, maybe the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and so we may have to shed some of those, non-believers or um, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, whatever.
Apostates.
Apostates. Yeah, there you go. It's probably the best word and the most appropriate, given that's the word they use. So I get that. The okay, so we were talking about yeah. So they're like, hey, we can take you to the forge. Seems super appropriate and super sus that they know exactly how to get there.
Right.
Just so happen to know get there. So I get that. I think somebody said that in the chat here. Who was it? I think it was Ohm said, post my, where is it? Let me pull that up real quick. Says, my rant to you guys a few weeks ago. I think Mandalorian has pulled it back. I really like the spy twists, although let's be honest, it's either the armor or the sled pirate
I like that.
Mandalorians.
Sled pirates. I like it.
Come on, I had a thing going. I had people talking, saying hobo mandos in the chat, and now,
We have said it countless times. We have the best listeners on the planet.
uh,
We have the
okay,
best sled pirates on the planet too.
okay, no, you don't. Also, love Mando Gideon. So that was Ohms. Okay, all right, so it's the next morning. They're heading to the forge, and like Rick does a good job of showing you the armor heading to the fleet, and he doesn't really need to hold on these shots as long as he does. He didn't have to cut back a second time
I was
to
surprised
show
by
that
that.
she was arriving. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, that she
And this
actually
is
made it back, that she didn't just depart, right?
exactly, yeah. But these are the things that I think. I mean, this is part of what you do in storytelling, right? You keep feeding these signaling. You signal that I'm going to show you this, and you're going to question like, why am I showing you this? Because you didn't have to, and that puts doubt in your mind. And I think that builds the case for why the armor could be the person here, could be the other spy.
Right.
Maybe there's more than maybe there are two of them. I don't know. We'll see. Um, but yeah, so they head there. The sail barge takes off. We get the whole fighting over the Mando chest thing, and there's parallels between. It wasn't lost on me that they're fighting over the rules in this game, which is
Right.
what they've been fighting over this entire time. The rules of what it is to be a Mandalorian. So I get all that. I think the big takeaway was the fact that Grogu comes in, steps in, stops the fight,
No.
and that
No.
comment.
No.
Yeah,
No.
versus right. Um, what I thought was cool because like I have questions about whether or not he could stop the fight because they just said we can't do anything about this, right? And he's part of the tribe of two right now, the clan of two. So why does he get to stop the fight but nobody else could? I don't know. But
Well, again, he's still kind of an outsider too, right? He's obviously different. He looks different. He
no,
can do different things. Yeah.
he's green in a machine. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. And he can do all these crazy flips.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess that's an argument for why he could stop the fight. But I guess the part that I really like was he didn't learn that from me.
Right.
And my first thought was, okay, he got that from Luke, right? Like he learned the value of peace and inner peace, and not fighting unless you have to, all the Jedi way of thinking. But I think some of it too could be what he's lessons he's just picked up from Bo-Katan, right? And her constant message of we can't fight him, we have to stop fighting, we have to come together. That's the only way we're going to win. And from a child's perspective, they see things very plainly. It's very black and white. And so for him, I think that he just literally took what she could have said and applied it and said, I don't know anything about all the other stuff you're fighting about, but I know that you seem to all agree that we have to come together, and you guys are not doing that right now. So no, this has to stop, right? That seems it's a very oversimplified way of dealing with the situation and what I would expect a child to do.
Yep. I agree with all that.
Okay. All right. Nope, that's fair. Okay, let's see. Where are we here? Okay, enough fighting. So the gauntlet arrives with the wounded. This is where we get that shot where they're kind of coming in, and we get the guy that's sitting in the captain's chair going, "Yeah, come on in. We're ready for you." And then they cut away. They hold on that one a little bit awkwardly as well. Like, oh, this doesn't seem like it's going to go well. Like, it seems very suspicious. And we'll know more, I guess, next episode. But then we get more dinosaurs. There was a time right before the High Republic came out. You remember when they showed the creative board and they were putting ideas on the whiteboard of things that they wanted to see in the High Republic? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wrote the word dinosaurs in there.
Right. It was a
And
joke.
like,
Yeah.
and it was a joke, but we had, and some parts of me feel like there are dinosaurs in Star Wars. Like we've always
Oh,
had
sure.
them, but I mean, we've had so many dinosaurs now and I'm using air quotes, but dinosaurs in Star Wars. So anyways, there is a yet another one. This was shot like Godzilla. Like I don't know if that's their intent, but everything from the way the jagged spikes were that were kind of coming up from the ground, right? That could be his spine. It seemed like it was out of a Godzilla movie.
It's
Even the monster
the
itself
monster
looked like
analysis
it.
part of the show. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I did love it. I was not expecting them to suddenly destroy the barge the way they did, the way the monster did, and how quickly it did. Although, given its size relative to the ship, that makes total sense.
Right.
I saw some people say, "Why didn't the Mandos fight? Like, why would they just suddenly run off into the caves?" And I think the easy answer is, if anybody knows what the heck that thing is and what it's capable of doing, it's going to be the people that live there. And they probably said, "We don't have a ship. There's no way we're going to take this thing down."
Well, they got their
So,
asses kicked by a crocodile turtle too, just recently. So I mean, they're like 0 for 3 on dinosaurs lately, or 0 for 2.
right,
So
yeah,
we're not even going to try this one. We're just going to chalk up
yeah,
the L now and go
yeah.
ahead and retreat.
So it makes sense that they would run. It seems uncharacteristic of Mandalorians to run away from a battle, but they're not dumb. I mean, they're not blindly running into battles that they know they can't win. And I think this is when they just said, "Look, man, we just got our butts kicked."
Yeah,
Huh?
it would serve no purpose either, right? I mean,
Yeah,
your honor, I guess, but
pride, honor, sure,
yeah,
yeah.
you're dead. So that didn't really work out.
They reminded me of the quotes from Aliens, like, "I don't know if you've been keeping up on current events. We just got kicked."
Right.
We'll mute that out. Maybe I will in post. Okay, so they run into the caves. We get on the trail of the Great Forge, or at least what's left of it. They make their way there. We kind of already talked about this. Again, it was pretty indistinguishable as far as it being the Great Forge. I don't know what is I was expecting. I guess I was expecting a larger scaled version of what we've seen the armor used to make the stuff, but
It wouldn't have seemed like one continuous unit. It seems like it would have had chambers or something else, right? Like you could
mhm.
have envisioned a bunch of people at various stages of it. It wouldn't just be kind of one cylindrical, type of, floor to ceiling. I mean, it was massive, but again, it didn't have a whole lot of dynamic aspects to it to where you could actually picture where people would be within the structure. So I'm with you. It was a little bit of a maybe the entire place is the forge. Maybe we're thinking too singularly about what we saw on screen, and it's really the entire room. And there's multiple chambers, and we just didn't get that appreciation for it based on just kind of the scale we saw. And then we had the attack, of course.
I think we'll get more in the next episode. I do. If not, maybe next season, but I think we'll see this return to its full glory and kind of get the full picture at some point. Uh, has come back now, and he's found a compromise. I'm willing to compromise on this one. He's calling him now the sled hobo pirate
No,
Mandalorian. So
no, no,
I'm surprised you didn't load that into the
no.
roadcaster there, so that you could just slam that button whenever you didn't like what I said.
That's actually a fantastic idea.
It would not make good audio because you would
Oh,
just
people
everything
would
I
love
say
it.
you would hit no.
No, I just say
Yes,
it too.
fine. You could just say it
No.
as well. Okay, so the hobo sled Mando pirates, they kind of give us a little bit of context on what they've been doing this whole time, right? That they've been kind of the way they survived, and this is a little suspicious as well, honestly. But they've been able to survive by basically doing what Mandalorians have kind of been. They've been nomadic, moving around, trying, staying off the radar kind of thing. But they've been doing it here on Mandalore and staying under the radar by constantly moving, never staying in one place. They did make the comment about people have gone under here before and died, alluding to the fact that there was something down here that was killing them. We're about to find out in just 1 second. The Empire. But it was cool that at least we got a little bit of context and background on where they were. Um, and then we get the big battle, right? So this is where we get them flying in. At first, they thought they were Mandalorians. They weren't. Um, yeah. So I got questions around here, around this stuff here. Um, the Let's just talk about Axe Wolves quickly, okay? So in the midst of all of this, this is where my money is. I posted on Twitter. I'm all in on Axe Wolves being the traitor and not the armorer. The armorer for me it feels a little too telegraphed. Like it feels like it is a bait and switch. Um, I The way Favreau has talked about the armorer in interviews first is where I'm basing a lot of my prediction on. He has talked about the armorer as though she is just this enamored, like he's enamored with this character, and I don't know that he would do that. It seems cynical. It seems, it doesn't line up. Narratively speaking, though, this would be the long game. Like we're talking about a character for the better part of what 3.5 years now. Who, yeah, she's made questionable decisions, said some questionable things at times, but by and large, she seems like she's been a very good person, and she's had plenty of opportunities to turn against Bo, to turn against Din Djarin. It begs the question: if she is that, then I would have a lot of questions like, why didn't she do this during season one, season two, during the Book of Boba Fett, any part of season three now? There's probably reasons for and against all of that, but it just feels like this is too long of a game. Usually, when there's a traitor that's going to be revealed, it's going to be somebody that's been recently introduced or someone that you've been with for a short period of time that's given you just enough to believe that they're good and then they flip that on you. So I can see why the armor would be a suspect, but like narratively, I really have a hard time getting on board with her being it. What seems to make the most sense to me is somebody like Axe Wolves, who was already established in the last a couple episodes ago as somebody who's really just for hire. Whoever's willing to pay him the most money, he's going to fall in line with. We saw that, and sure, Costco was in there and the rest of them, but he was also made that comment about, hey, this is my fleet and I'm not giving it up. I think he loves the power. I think he loves the wealth. And if he feels like he can get that from Gideon by betraying his own groups, which he's probably not that much loyal to at this point, anyways, I think he would do that. I think he would take advantage of it. The big red flag was the fact that he says, cover me. I'm going to go get backup or whatever it is. Right. He's got a jetpack. They have no ship. He doesn't know that they have not been in the hangar. So he doesn't know that there's interceptors there or whatever. He has no way of communicating with anybody above there. They've already established there's communications have been cut off. So the fact that he would take off in the midst of the battle to go get more reinforcements when they don't even know they were like 5 seconds into this fight and he cut and run. I just don't get what he was trying to do other than get away from that because things were getting hot and he's the traitor. So that's my theory.
Right. So I think with there's an article on discussing film with Emily Swallow as well, and they kind of bury the lead on it, but at the very end they did talk about the armor's journey. And again, it was a very basic comment, very simple comment, but it did lean towards like where you're going. It just doesn't seem like the way that we continue to hear the actors and the showrunners talk about the character, they're not suggesting in any kind of way that this character has this as a possibility to do. Now, I think I laid out before. I think there are reasons why she would be interested in this, though. So I'm not willing to take her off the board, the armor, but Axwoves does seem to come up a little bit. The scene was a little bit different than how you played it out, though, because he had said, "I'm going to go get for help," but Paz is the one that said, "Well, hey, there's a convenient opening up top. I'll cover you. You go ahead and get out, right? Because now they're
Well, hold on.
BFFs, right?"
So if we're gonna play details though,
Okay.
Bo-Katan tells him, she says, "You're not gonna make it," and he still did it anyways.
Right, yeah. So he could also be the
So,
savior, though, right? So he could be the hero,
mm,
play devil's advocate. I'm with you. I think it's probably Axwoves.
so Bo says it's too far because it really is. I mean, there's just no way realistically that he would do it. And then that's when Paz says, "I'll cover you."
Right, yeah, and so he's got a lot of reasons too. Because I'm with you. He doesn't he likes the power. He liked the control over the fleet. He'd grown
Hmm.
quite fond of it, he had said, right? And he also just
Yes.
doesn't respect Bo-Katan at this point. He still has his attitude. He's got this swagger. Now he's always kind of had that swagger, but again, I think he's just like, you know what? I'm tired of being told what to do. I'm tired of Miss Princess over here and her entitlement and that she's the one true heir and everything else. And I don't care. Why do I have to care about any of this stuff? And I've got these zealots over here that are a complete abomination of to our way of life, and he probably has a very specific idea of how Mandalorian should be in his own way, right?
Yeah.
And feels like he could lead that just as well. So I think, yeah, he has as many reasons, if not more than the armor, in order to be the one that would turn them over to Gideon and betray them all. I happen to like the aspect of the armor better, just because it would fit the whole zealot, just that way of that structure of saying the only way to really truly make a difference for us as a people is to completely start over at this point. And granted, they had kind of already done that, but now you have this big group and they just continue to pay the price for it. So from that respect, I probably like that avenue a little bit better. But if I were to put money on this, I'd probably put money on X Wolves being the betrayer here.
If you've not had a chance to chime in on who you feel the armor is in the live chat, feel free to do so. I'll try to highlight some of these comments. I've been purposely not picking them up because I was going to come back to them and kind of tag them once we got here. So Miss Sunflower says the armor has been consistently sus since the beginning of the season. She has been real flip floppy with the rules, and that's a good point. She has been.
She
She
took a
like
very left. She put we when we pointed this out. She took a hard left
hard
turn.
turn. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
when
agree.
she said that, you know what, take your helmet off. We have to bridge the gap. All of a sudden, it felt very. It didn't feel right.
Accelerated.
Yeah, it just was abrupt, right? There was just no preamble to it. We didn't get any kind of insight. Now, granted, likely, like we pointed out, there was probably several weeks that had gone by where she had been brewing and stewing and
Mm-hmm.
ruminating over the idea of the mythosaur and what that could possibly mean. So that could very well all be completely accurate, and it would make sense to me in some ways that she was like, you know what, I got to get over myself. And some of the interviews that we've heard and some of the discussion, like back in the real world with actors and showrunners, and all of that,
Yeah.
definitely seem to suggest that that's what happened. But of course, and that's not spoiler or anything else. That's just these real innocuous, arbitrary interviews that they give you zero to really work with. But but again, it was just so abrupt though that you
It
can't
was.
you can't help but be suspicious of it.
Yeah, and we
Oh, I'm
called it out
sorry.
on the
Sus. We're
sus,
using that
right?
all of a sudden, yeah.
No, it's come on, dude. That's been
I
going on
know.
since the,
It's
the
yeah, it's
game
Among Us, I get it.
Among Us. Yeah,
Yep.
the it's part of our vernacular at this point. This was during the Foundling episode, and we called it out in that episode. We said, "Wow, this feels weird." Like they suddenly just,
Right.
and to be fair, we called Paz out as well because he seemed to be like taking that same hard left turn, right, and suddenly coming on board, and we kind of chalked a lot of this up for him at least. Well, his son was in dire straits and he was saved, and so that brought him around to the whole thing, right? So I think we could get behind that and justify that. But to be fair, like I think the armor does have a legitimate argument as far as why she could be a suspect. You're smirking. What did somebody put in the chat? Because I'm not looking.
Jeff, he's like, if you're gonna put money on it as an active gambler, I mean, he laid out the line for everyone for the
Okay.
armor, Axe, and Mando.
All right. Hold that thought. I want to go back to the.
Active gambler, so I don't necessarily understand what all that means, but I think he says that the armor is the favorite, so she probably has the lowest odds.
Okay.
I think that's what that is telling me.
He bets on UFC fights on Saturdays. I already know.
Don't call him
I'm kidding.
out.
You don't. He's a big UFC fan, but that's not what he does. I'm sure he spends his money, invests it wisely. Let's see. Speaking of Jeff, he says the armorer makes sense. Bo and Din are mutual problems for her and Gideon. Agreed. He can deliver Mandalore for her. She can deliver the apostates. She rebuilds the culture in her image. So, so the argument being that she wants to build Mandalore back to the original ways and cast out all these apostates that keep taking their helmets off and have great hair.
Jeff writes for a living, so that's why he is so much more studious.
He's more elegant than we are.
Yeah, he's way more elegant than we are. Yeah.
In many ways. Let's see. Other comments. I'm just scrolling through here. Let's see. Jace B says, my money is on Axe. He's disloyal. Took the fleet from Bo once before. He had the opportunity to rescue Gideon. He has no clan. He doesn't wear a signet. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. And he flew away when fighting to get help. Right. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Just what are you going to do, dude? I don't think you really thought this one through. Let's see. Hard Counter says, I guess he's talking about the armor because before she couldn't gather everyone together. Now, for one fell swoop culling, it's less work for Gideon. I'd agree. Like that idea that they were all conveniently in one fell swoop. I think there's something there. The armor, did she have a hand in that? Maybe not. Same thing with Axe. I don't think so. But the hobo pirates definitely did. So I think that's probably an argument in their favor more than some of the other ones. He's just agreeing with you. I'm not going to put that up on the board. And then, Neo, man, you just got me every week.
I have more credibility now.
Yeah, there's really good people of character are starting to really come on board and get in line with this, and I don't know how I feel about that. So, okay, well, we'll find out soon enough. I've made my argument as far as why I think it's Axe. I have the armor as number 2 for me. And then probably Hobo Mando's at that point, and then Casca's like I don't know. She's probably not in the picture as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it could be somebody. I mean, I don't know that it would be anybody else because then it would be too much of a shock to suddenly spring that. I saw people going, "What if it's Din?" I thought, "Are you watching the same series? Like, why would you even throw that in the mix?"
And clearly, he's in love with Bo, so
right, yeah. It's Grogu.
It's got to be Grogu and Grief. Yeah. They're in cahoots together, and IG-12.
Grief Cargo, right? Oh, that's not funny. Okay, so all right, we get into the fight after Axe takes off as like the traitorous person that he is. Axe, let's see. So Bo-Katan, I don't know if you saw this. We're not going to get into the battle because we don't do that play commentary. But there was a moment in there where she actually took a blaster bolt from like 5 feet away.
Yeah, right in the chest.
Straight to the chest. I thought that was cool, and she just shrugged it off and kept fighting.
Oh, she staggered. She staggered.
Yeah, she was. No, don't get. Here's another thing too. So, in defense of the Hobo Mandos, they were actively in the fight. Like they were at risk like everybody else. The only 2 people that technically weren't at risk were the armor because she was up in space and dude because he left. But I mean, that was pretty risky if they were the traitors that they would be in the midst of all that. And I watched it. I went back frame by frame. They are definitely there. They definitely make it into the hangar, although they have their helmets on at that point. But they're there, so they were in it. So really risky, in my opinion,
I definitely
for
don't.
them.
I don't think it's the sled pirates.
You had to call them sled pirates.
I did. I'm not going to call them hobos.
And can I just say that as somebody who plays a tank primarily in like MMOs, I love all about the scene because they were just charging in like, and then Mando had that moment where he went straight on into the fray, like, Leroy Jenkins style. Like that was just perfect. I loved everything about this. But they do make their way into, I guess, what I was calling Imperial hangar for lack of a better term. It had blast doors, so I assume that's potentially what it is. And this is where they get ambushed. And so now again, this is where you got to just kind of turn off the thinking on some of this stuff because there's questions about, why did they start shooting the door when Bo was cutting the way out of their back, right? Were they taking a stand? Were they not going to take a stand? We don't necessarily get into that. But let's talk about, I guess, the big part here, which was Mando getting captured, right? He gets separated. The other 3 chumps that were out there, I mean, they fell down within seconds. But I was surprised we didn't see like the whistle. He didn't give it like his. I thought we were in for like a final, almost like a Paz kind of thing, right? A little bit more of a fight, but he was quickly subdued. Maybe more quicker than I would have liked, given he had whistling birds and a number of other weapons he could have been using. He didn't use them. He got to use the flamethrower, which had no effect, which I thought was interesting because, of course, they're wearing Beskar armor.
Well, it did a little bit on the ones in front of him. Like they did
Was it
It
more
did
of a
hurt them.
deterrent though? But we didn't ever see anybody just like be engulfed in flames. Is what I guess
Oh
is what I'm
well, yeah,
saying.
they didn't linger. Yeah, and they certainly didn't linger on anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, again, I was turned off of thinking he got captured. This is great storytelling. It's going to make for a very compelling final episode because now you've got your main hero captured and who's going to save him. That's the question that comes up. But what did you think about Mando's capture and I guess everything that I just talked about leading up until Gideon's arrival?
It was a little bit. Din's capture was okay. It was a little awkward the way it went down. I'm with you. He had a lot of other resources he probably could have used. But again, it kind of makes sense that he would be captured though. And again, he's valuable to remain alive where they killed everybody else, or they had no problem with others dying. That he would want to keep Din alive because again, there's still an opportunity to get Grogu,
Hmm.
and to get that and to potentially use that as leverage in some way. Even though Bo basically, flipped him the dark saber, the bird equivalent, but at the same time, I think there's an opportunity to where he can still progress his other plans. And I also thought it was curious. We didn't talk about this during the Shadow Council, but he kind of beat around the bush about Pershing. So I think you had said this before that Pershing might not be completely gone, right? So
Hmm.
there might be opportunity for him to come back. So again, that kind of leads back into this where with Din Djarin still being alive, having some sort of value, can we trade the child? Because the child still has immense value to Moff Gideon at this point.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a bargaining chip.
Miss Sunflower is doubling down on the mind flay for Din Djarin.
Yeah.
He will forget all of his love of Bo-Katan,
Oh no,
and we will
no,
have
he
to start
won't.
over.
He'll forget about Grogu before he forgets about Bo-Katan. Just gonna put that
Wow,
out there.
hot take.
Dumb take is probably more appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah. So his capture again, it makes for a great season finale. So I totally get that. But when Gideon shows up, like a lot of the argument too for the armor, right, is the fact that their helmets are similar. I If you really look at the helmets though,
it's way
they're
more.
not that similar.
It's like a half blend between Stormtrooper and a little bit of Mandalorian, but it's still very much a Stormtrooper design.
Yeah.
He has channeled that Mandalorian side of it a little bit, but it's a weird kind of blend. It was really hard to make out the details of it actually though, because it was just so black on black, and then the scene itself was darker, not as dark as some other scenes we've had, but it was very dark. So making out that definition, that detail was a little bit tough at times. But
Yeah.
looking at it, it did have a lot of stormtrooper elements to it. A very, very Ralph McQuarrie-ish type of, again,
Design.
just like the white Beskar troopers there.
Right. But
You
just
know,
black.
exactly. And a little bit of a different take on it, kind of like what the Praetorians had. It was a weird blend of all of those together.
Hmm. Yeah. Neil's reading my show notes here. But that helmet is more in line with like Death Watch, the Darth Maul kind of look. The horn. The only thing that's a little different is especially looking at the armor versus uh, Gideon. He's got a standard T visor,
Right.
right? And the armor has more of this kind of like I don't know Roman Empire guard kind of look. It's kind of like Bo-Katan's with more of a rounded eye.
Right.
All of this is still in the same. I mean, this is all still within the same family of helmets and that sort of thing for Mandalorian. So it's not uncommon to see something like that. But I just don't know that because both have horns. That is a dead giveaway that she's been an undercover agent for this whole time. Although that was the argument originally when we first saw her, season one, when she first came out, everybody was questioning, "Oh my gosh, she's got to be traitorous, and she's probably loyal to Darth Maul because of the helmet." And I guess it's fair to use that, but
To maybe explore that just a teeny bit, is the armor the only? Presumably, the Empire can forge armor from Beskar, right? I mean, we're not.
they found a way.
We
Yeah.
don't believe that the Mandalorians are the only ones who can forge anything from Beskar, do we?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question, and I think that would work in the favor of the armor. Although she wouldn't be doing that on the side, like a side gig.
Right, but
That's a really good question. I
did
don't
she
know. I haven't
teach
thought
them
about it.
how at one point? And so again, to lean back that is she potentially the traitor? That would lean back that she was the one who showed them at one point how to manipulate Beskar. Maybe she didn't give them all the secrets, or maybe they're just doing this alloy thing on their own. This
Hmm.
impure version of it. But it would be interesting though if that would be one angle of it. If Mandalorians really are supposed to be the only ones who know how to do it. Now the Empire has had the resources and the technology and everything else to be able to figure it out, I would presume. To me, it would almost make less sense if they didn't figure it out or didn't know, or if it wasn't important to them to figure it out to where they could do
Mm.
it themselves. But it's just an interesting question of would they have needed help at some point, or even maybe not currently, but at some point needed help from the armor or someone like her to be able to do it.
I think, and I'm oversimplifying this, and they probably will come up with a Star Wars reason or explanation. But to make the armor that these Beskar troopers have, I think all you need to do is have a lot of heat to melt the thing, and then you need a mold, right? I think for the Mandalorian armor, the aspects, I think that does require somebody like the armorer to do, like all the intricacies. And we saw her making it. It's got all these wiring stuff that's happened in the background. But if it's just straight up armor kind of thing, I think anybody could melt these down in any kind of a forge and just pour them into the mold, and there you go. You got Beskar armor, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles and the intricacies that, like whistling birds. And I
Right.
think that's where her skill set comes in, and it would require somebody with that knowledge working for the Empire to create and replicate some of that technology. So that's how I would rationalize it.
Okay.
But let's get into his monologuing here, right? He gets into this monologue about he's talking about these are the new dark troopers. Mandalore will live in me, and he's showing off his new armor, that sort of thing. I'm trying to get into. He talks about how the armor's been forged by Beskar alloy. He says it's that me is the missing piece of it. Okay,
Right.
and then he goes into this whole thing about it's the best of all three worlds, right? He's working on the best of all three worlds: clones and cloning technology, the Jedi and the Mandalorians. The Mandalorians, I think we see that component. It's the armor. It's the Beskar. Okay.
Yeah.
The Jedi piece, I think he's speaking to the stuff that was going on with Grogu, right? Either the midichlorians trying to create force sensitive beings, whatever it is. Somehow that element of the force, I think, is what he was trying to get, and I think he's still trying to work towards that, which is why Pershing is probably still working for him, but now maybe in a weird capacity or vegetative state, or I don't know, a zombie of some sort. But the other part that was really when he says that there's me in there, I took that literally and thinking, holy crap, what if he thought, like, because remember, the missing Pershing says the weakest component was the human element, right? But this dude is so big on himself. He's so much about himself. He almost looks at himself as like a Jango Fett, right? He is the template of what an amazing fighter can be. So what if he's been cloning himself this entire time, right? And phase one of this is making all of these guys, because we don't know what they look like without their helmets. What if they all look like Gideon? And then the only missing component that he's still got left to solve for, right? So they all have his DNA, his tactical experience, and whatever he feels is like, what makes him amazing. And then the only other piece that he still has yet to figure out is how does he force imbue these clones as kind of phase two? Because then that would give him all three of the best worlds at that point. But that's how I took this. Again, I can sometimes be very literal about these things, but I think it would be interesting, especially when you see those clone tubes in the back. They look darker skinned to me than what we've seen. But what do you
Yeah,
think?
I couldn't really tell the skin tone. Yeah, but in one regard, didn't you have to take his ego into effect? I don't hate that theory at all. I actually think it's an interesting theory, and it's totally reasonable. I think in some way too. I think maybe the thing that to poke holes in it just for fun is that his ego is so high, and is so great that he would find anybody else a bit of a risk. Like he's the only one. Like he's the prime, right? He's the only one that could be there to fill that role. Cloning him, but he viewed that as a bit of a threat. And I think this is an interesting connection with Bad Batch as well, with what Hemlock was doing. You and I debated about what is it about the idea of like the clones with the chips, to do obedience. They wanted to do it at a more molecular level,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
how do we enslave the galaxy in a biological kind of way rather than in a technological kind of way?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be another interesting aspect of cloning in this regard of saying, okay, you want a force sensitive army, but I also need it to be very compliant and very follow orders, no question about it, and very loyal. And more so than what we had with the clones. And so it was an interesting combination of all three of those. And it is interesting. It's kind of like, he added his own little blood to the mix, right, to the syrup, and it has made it somehow better with his intellect and his planning and his ruthlessness. You
his
know, every
DNA.
yeah,
Yeah.
just everything about him is now embodied in it. So I like that in a more, in a less physiological aspect of it and almost a more psychological aspect of it too. I really
Hmm.
I think that's kind of a cool idea to I don't know if it'll happen or not like that, but I think it really was. He was probably being a bit more literal of saying, no, it's just me in the suit. I make the suit, because we saw it with the Dark Troopers, right? They're very single minded. They just had a task, and so they thought they got rid of the human element. No, the human element wasn't the problem. They had the wrong human in the suit, right? And
Yeah.
so that he is the answer to it. But again, how do the rest of these troopers fall into this program? Because it was interesting. You were talked about with the ray shields when he was walking down the aisle. They're all standing guard. They all have a lot of spaces. Why are they all in the ray shield? Each one has their own compartment. If they're human, why? Like,
I think,
just for
yeah.
aesthetics or just this guard or what? But to me, it's like there's just something off about that walk down that aisle, right? With all
Yeah.
of the ray shields and them just standing there. So I really hope we get something more about the troopers. I have a feeling we probably won't, but I hope we will to be
Mhm.
able to help answer that question and give us a better link here and a little bit better, I don't know, a little more controlled way for us to go and zero in on what the actual potential solutions might be to some of these questions we've got.
I like the idea of him not cloning himself because of what you said, like the threat that potentially could bring up. Maybe he has something in there for Order 66. I don't know where he can shut him off. I don't want to even get into that. But on the other hand, if he is an egomaniac and he is a narcissist, like the most narcissistic thing to do would be make millions of me in my liking, right? That God complex of I'm creating the perfect being. He talks about aggregating all of these together to bring order, peace, and order to the galaxy, right? That seems like something a narcissist would do, especially if he had the power and somebody like Gideon. But again, it is a far fetched theory. It's like really out there because there really has a line aside from that one line of "that's me" in it or whatever it is. I forget what the line is exactly. Yeah, it's probably a big jump to conclusions, but if I'm right, you'll never hear the end of it. He also says at this point that he's going to he needs activates the interceptors and the bombers. I think they're setting that up for the space battle that we're going to get in the final episode as well. And then this is where the retreat starts. Again, how they were talking through the blast doors, I don't know, don't care. We don't need to talk about that because it's a long distance and there's a lot between them, but whatever. And then and again, so they start shooting. Yeah, I love the no look pass is what I have in my notes here, where she just looks. Bo kind of turns her head to Paz, and he knows instinctively what the mission is, which is blow these doors apart and start that battle. But I think the more I was thinking about it here as we were talking through this episode, honestly tonight, I wonder if it was really just about okay, blow the blast doors open. Let's make sure that we kind of put up a fight, but we're realistically not going to charge into the middle of an Imperial hangar where we don't even know how many more troops there are. So really, the more logical thing is to do is to kind of regather, and re-strategize once. And so, for my head, I guess that makes sense why she would run to the back, cut a hole open, and get out of there so they could live to fight another day. I don't think they were expecting Gideon to say open the blast doors though. Like I think that was him kind of pulling a oh yeah I'll show you what we're going to do kind of thing on them. So
Yeah,
and we can talk
absolutely.
about this battle because it was pretty quick. And before we finally get into the
We're already at 2 hours, so we should probably move this along.
oh, are we really? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Time flies when you're having fun. I told you this would be an hour long discussion tonight. Okay.
every time you say that, I
Um.
believe you.
Yep. So Gideon flies off like a coward. What a jerk. He gets out of there. And then Paz makes his last stand. And I know people have asked like why did he have to? We just have to kind of take it at face value that he did. Like it was a decision that had to happen. I mean, had he not, what would have happened? Like, did he bought them a lot of time, I'll say that.
Yeah, he did, and he was able to. Yeah, he was able to keep them back. He was actually advancing too, so giving them more space. That one person be able to do all of it, of course, suspend your belief. It's Star Wars is a very heroic moment, especially for Paz. And
It
again,
is.
the part that you like about it with Paz is that where he's gone over the course of this arc, for this
Yep.
season has been quite incredible of being able to I am steadfast with the armor to, Din Djarin's an apostate from Book of Boba Fett, but the redemption, respect for Bo-Katan, the continued developing of respect for Bo-Katan, and really aligning and supporting them as a power couple. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of important, moments there for Paz.
Yeah.
So that, but then again, that he's the one that continues to step up for the tribe, I think is just really cool for him as a character. And while he's leaving his son behind, and that's we could argue about whether or not that's the right thing to do, but it's the right message to send to his son of this is what we do for our tribe. This is what we do for the people that we care about and the people that we love, which is our family, right? And it's everybody in this family. We all walk the way and we all exhibit these behaviors. This is all very important to us. And so those are the things he wants to be remembered for. And it was probably a little bit of ego in there too, that he's the one that can do it. He's the biggest, he's the brawniest, all those good things. But at the same time, his motives were probably a bit more pure than that. So we won't we won't stray too far from that. At least I won't stray too much from that.
Yeah. I did enjoy the fact that he has like I don't know that he's come around. He's been very consistent. His loyalty has been to the way,
Right.
right? And there's nothing different here for him. He's what the way is and who he supports in honor of the way has changed, right? I think that's the character growth that you're speaking to, but this feels like something he would do.
It's very much like what Din was saying too, like what to Bo-Katan when he was professing his love, talking about loyalty and honor.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
things that Paz, I think to your point, those are the things that Paz also values. Is even when he was challenging, but like in the last episode where they removed their helmet, and
Mhm.
it's like, so what, and I think that's where he is starting to get when he looks over at Din for approval. These are that's exactly I think the moment that you're talking about here. Those are the things that I think we look back to and say that those are the things that he values: honor, loyalty, doing the right thing, following the way, taking care of the covert, taking care of the kids, care of the family.
Yeah.
Coming back, trying again. I mean, all of those things, those are what are important to pause, and they all lead up to that moment.
There's a trope of the hero's sacrifice, which is what this was essentially. I
Right.
don't know if our third member of the show is still awake. She's usually in bed by now or turns into a pumpkin. I haven't seen Lauren on, but she texted and said that it was the Boromir scene, right? So
Right.
calling back to Lord of the Rings once again, and this happens in all of fiction forever, right? There's somebody who kind of takes that last stand, and you hope that he goes down with a quote a warrior's death. I thought this was all appropriate. I enjoyed it. I mean, he certainly was really hard to take down, and I don't know what his kill count was, but I want to go through and like just mark how many he took down. Like he cleared all of those troopers and even more of them. I didn't think he was like it was a different take on the warrior's death or the hero's sacrifice because he did take care of the initial threat, and you think, wow, he did it. Like this is different. How did he? He didn't die. And then to Jeff's point, where I think Jeff earlier said that this was like one of the coolest scenes he's ever seen in Star Wars, is what the way Rick filmed this, right? You get this like ground level shot of the Praetorian guards walking in, and it only takes about 2 seconds before you realize, holy crap, we're actually seeing them on stage, right? For the first time in live action. But it was a different take in that yes, he made that sacrifice, and you thought he was going to get through it, but he really didn't. And I'll just say this right now, like the gun overheating, I thought that was really great. That was kind of cool. I love the fact that he turned that into a weapon when he was done with that. He had some great moments of punching people. He slid that one dude right off. Even the guy was already unconscious. He still went ahead and slid him right off and made sure that he was dead. So he did a lot of cool things that you would expect somebody like him to do. And yeah, there were times when he was just literally turned around talking, and I guess he's taking shots and all that or whatever. But either way, I will say that I don't think Paz is alive. Like I think he's dead. Like I know people have said, well, and even in the chat right now that maybe he's going to help Din, all that stuff. He's dead. Like I don't. I think they made it pretty clear that he did sacrifice himself. He did die. In the Foundling episode, we had said that he would die because in Star Wars and in other literature, when they show the heir to a person like that, when they showed us Ragnos or whatever the kid's name was, I think I said it in the show. I was like, yeah, he's dead. Like they're sick. That's it. He's not going to
Ragnar.
live now.
Yeah, Ragnar.
Ragnar,
I
thank
don't
you.
know. They didn't kill Indiana Jones.
That's a different. That's a little different. I'm saying like this is a
Okay.
a minor, not tier. Well, it's a tier one character. Stop it, okay? But don't take this away from me. But yeah, I think all the signs were there that he was going to pass. I did enjoy the way he passed, and what a better a great way to go. I mean, you have the Praetorian Guards show up. I love the fact that they had, like I said earlier, the purple blades rather than like the really red blades. The armor looked like of earlier version of them. I'm assuming that's Beskar armor as well,
Right.
which would be cool because that explains. Well, no, hold on. Yeah, they were able to puncture that armor in Last Jedi. Sorry.
But no, well, Beskar alloy though, and so I think it is Beskar alloy. So it is difficult to get through it, but you still can. Just like in the Mandalorian in end of season 2 when Luke Skywalker comes through, right? So he's
Mm,
still like he's still cutting through it, but it's not like butter all the way through it, right? There's still some amount of resistance to it.
resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it is Beskar alloy, so I think it is tougher than just regular. It's not going to just slice right through it.
Yeah.
And again, I think the weapons, we had someone in the chat that was asking if whether or not it pierced the armor. I viewed this as they were going in through the soft spot,
They
through the
did.
joints. Yeah,
I went through almost a frame by frame just to make sure, and they were like strategically attacking the weak points in between the plates of armor, and that's why he lived a little bit longer than you would expect because he took a number of those, right?
right.
But they were all in these joint positions and stuff. It wasn't
Oh,
until
the
the
one
very
in the
end.
the neck, like straight
Neck, yeah,
through.
that was the kind of the kill shot there. There was a moment too where they had kind of stuck him on the side a little bit, not like in anything kind of lethal. And then he went and did that thing where he kind of pulled himself closer and then grabbed the throat of one of the Praetorian guards.
Right,
I thought he was going to do something to that guy, like crush his neck or at least take one of them out. But there's just something cool about those Praetorian guards and just kind of like their gait. Like they're kind of, they walk in like death and they walk out very still, like no big deal. We did our job and, we're going down break now kind of thing. So,
right,
all of that aesthetically was really good. And then the way they just end the episode there, like, they cut to the more subtle music where I don't know, it's the flute going on in the background or whatever, and you're
right.
just kind of left thinking like, wow, what the heck's going to happen now? But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, great scene. And
tragic ending.
I'm with you. I think Paz is definitely dead. I think it would mean it would lose all of its impact if he was alive. But again, I think they made a very clear point that he is gone. They finished
Yeah,
the job. They just left the body behind.
I'm just throwing up some of the comments here. We're gonna roll on here. So I think we've covered the question of who were the spies. I don't know that I have anything else to add in pro or for or against any of the
Well,
suspects
not
or
till
the
Sunday at least.
Tune in Sunday to our part two. But yeah, so we'll get into some of these other questions here. I guess at some point. Let me see. I'm trying to think if we got anything else. What did you think about Paz's death, really quickly? Do you think that was so? There's in my head, there's like the warrior's death, right? The hero's sacrifice. But then there's like the Mandalorian sacrifice. Like you would think that's probably that would be greater, or I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Do you feel like he went out proper as a Mandalorian as Paz Vizsla?
Oh, I think so. I mean, you
Yeah.
you you took on an entire army, by yourself, and you basically survived.
Hmm.
And then it took three of the, presumably the most lethal protectorates that the Empire has at their disposal, and it took three of them to take you down. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you died your warrior's death, and it was worthy of having your name sung in song and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Right. And what do you think is happening to Din at this point?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, like hold him capture. I mean, what would they do with him? I mean, he doesn't really
I
have
think
a
it's a
whole lot of.
bargaining.
I mean, yeah, I think that's what it is, right? I think Gideon will turn that around and be, I want Grogu. Yeah, I
Hmm.
was trying to think of something else besides what I already had said, I guess. And so, but I still think it's more for Grogu. But again, he has, just like with Grogu, he had no intention of ever letting him go. And I don't think he has any intention of leaving Din Djarin alive. Ideally, you get Grogu, you kill him in front of Bo-Katan, and she falls apart, then you kill her too. Right? I mean, that's Gideon's probably plan in a nutshell of, okay, well, how do I take all these guys out all at once? All right, cool. I've got one of the pieces right in front of me. People go crazy. I gotta negate that little force tool over there and make sure that doesn't work. So make sure Grogu is somehow subdued. But and then we'll take these out one by one.
I feel like it is going to be kind of a bargaining chip for whatever he wants. It could be Grogu. He could say, "Hey, keep the child. I don't want the child. All I want is the dark saber. Give me the dark saber, and you can
But
have your dude back."
but why would he want the dark saber but not Grogu? Like
That's all he wants.
I
Well, he
know.
wants both. I,
I'm
I
just
think.
I'm just trying to understand what importance does the dark saber have to Moff Gideon?
Yeah, I think it just fits into this whole idea that he's kind of like this Mandalorian 2.0. Created in his own image. He seemed to be all about it in season 2.
Right.
It seems like all he wants now, like he's not even asked for Grogu. He was all about Grogu in season 1, but now he seems to be obsessed. And then the first thing he tells Bo-Katan is not, hey, there's Grogu, give me back that child. He says, no, give me back my Darksaber, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think, again, it's just part of the aesthetic. It's part of his narcissistic ways or whatever. I mean, maybe to him that does represent some kind of a leadership token or whatever.
I think having the Darksaber definitely takes that away from the Mandalorians and
Mm-hmm.
deflates them. It eliminates their source of power and, I don't know, just organization and their sense of leadership, like you were saying. I mean, it could take
Yeah.
away. He feels like it could deflate them and just completely demoralize them if they see it again. You are giving me the weapon of your people in yet another surrender. And let me tell you a story about the first time this happened and how it was a
Yeah.
lot like this. It just rubbed salt in the wound a bit. And so I maybe that's what it is, but he seems to be very eager to get it. So I just don't know if there's something more about it besides just being obsessed, or if he really just view this as, no, if I take this away, this definitely just beats the Mandalorians. And it's just
Yeah.
about winning against the Mandalorians specifically.
We've got more to discuss on this. We're not done. We're not going to do it tonight. So hold on, time out. We're not going to do it tonight. Just don't want anybody to get scared here. But Sunday. So Sunday is our Patreon episode. Because it is our 500th episode, we are going to release that to the public. So you can tune into the live stream. We'd love to have you here. We're going to get into a lot of speculation. There's a lot of questions. I'll go over quickly on some of them in just a second. But it is a Patreon episode. We are going to release it publicly. So if you don't catch the live recording, and that'll be out either Monday or Tuesday of next week at some point, just before the final episode, hopefully, because that would be really dumb. But so we got that coming. But just on tap, and this is not all of them. We have a lot more questions, but the questions that we're going to be talking about is, will Din remove his helmet? Are we going to see the mythosaur? And we'll get into more details about these, right? It's just like yes or no kind of thing. The space battle. Who's going to lead the space battle? Like, it feels like we're being set up for one, and yet all the leadership is down here except for the armorer. So that's in favor of why she's not the spy. But
Axros will take all of them out from his jetpack in the atmosphere.
From his jetpack, fly up there and rescue everybody. Who's going to lead the ground battle? What's happening to Bo-Katan? What's going to happen to Din? Let's see. What else did I have in here? Let's see. Oh, will we see Thrawn? I think is a question too that I want to ask and kind of dig into, because they've already signaled him, right? We saw them in the Star Wars Celebration trailer for Ahsoka. So could we see him now?
Yeah,
answer's no.
What's that post-credit trailer or the post-credit scene type of thing, right?
Yeah. Will the heroes suffer more losses?
Probably.
And if so, who's that going to be? Lauren, cover your ears. Hopefully Lauren's not listening. She's like really upset about Paz dying, honestly. So yeah, and will the Forge get fired up? Anyways, I got a lot of other questions here. We'll get into all that theory, speculation about the final episode. So come back on Sunday to join us here 9 p.m. Central for that show. But before we get out of here, I'm sure you have some shout outs.
Yeah, so again, thanks everyone for coming out on the live stream. Gary, Dale, Sky, Alex, Lauren, Amanda, Jeff, Miss Sunflower, Qui-Gon J, Music Train, Katya, David, Beacom, Halliday, Jace, Hard Countered, and Neil Sega. If I missed anyone, my sincerest apologies, not intentional, but appreciate y'all coming out. CantinaCast.com/YouTube if you're listening to the show and you'd like to come out and pay us a visit Thursdays and Sundays. And again, we'll be back on Sunday at 9 p.m. Central.
Well, that was short and sweet. Okay. Let's see. What else do we got? Anything else before we get out of here?
Listener Q&A. So with the celebration behind us, again, the last episode of The Mandalorian here, we'll get to the finale as well. CantinaCast.com/question. Get your questions into us. We get enough of those. Thank you to everyone who's put them in already. When we get enough of those, we'll put a show together and we will do all of that. Remember, if you are a Patreon member, you are guaranteed to have your question read on air and answered as well. So CantinaCast.com/Patreon for that /question for the Q&A.
So, okay, well, we'll leave it there. And again, please join us on Sunday, because that is going to be a very fun show, especially given where we are at the end of this episode. There's so much to discuss, so much speculation. And yeah, we're going to do our best to kind of be reckless about that. So
if you thought this one was going to be long, wait till Sunday.
Wait till Sunday. Okay, until then, see ya.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.